present. And you're going to have to use the microphone, as this is a big room. Atagarla. Edvate. Here. Anderson. Here. Bender. Bouma. Brown. Emery. Fahim. Grant.
Here.
Oh.
I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry.
Grant. Green. Oh, sorry, not yet. Goff.
Here. I can't use this word.
Gonzalez.
Here.
Hayes. Here. Hovey. Klaptatauskas. Lau. Lewis. Lona.
Here.
Ludwig. Mass. Pfeiffer. Here. Rinchi. Simonu. Schulte. Simonson. Springer. Stenzel.
Here.
Weathers. Young. Zastro. Zavoski. Brown. Grant. Ludwig, or Ludwig's proxy. Here. Mass.
Here.
All right, that information. Advate is representing Ludwig by proxy, Stenzel Mass by proxy. In the future, please state here by proxy if you are proxying on behalf of another senator when I call their name in the roll call. Thank you. With that, we have quorum. We will now move on to the Pledge of Allegiance led by Acting Speaker Gonzalez. Since there is no program for tonight, we will move into open forum. Open forum is an open discussion for issues relevant to the student body. As a point of information, we have, I think, about every seat full. So if you are not here to speak during open forum, but instead here to watch, I ask that you could please leave the room and watch the live stream to make room for people that may be wishing to speak during open forum. With that, I will ask any student who wishes to speak to approach the lectern, state their name and the college of their education. If we could have a line go that way so we don't have to, someone walk back to their seat and someone else come up and exit this way around. So if you would like to talk to the lectern, walk this way. If you would like to leave, go that way. So any student can approach the lectern now if they would like to speak. And I guess I should state as well that each open forum speaker is allotted 5 minutes maximum to speak. So please state your name and your college.
Hello, I'm Hunter Crawford, College of Agriculture and Life Science. Today I'm coming in open forum to speak in opposition to the resolution proposed by Senator Zastro 2 weeks ago, proposing to send students completely virtual and online this year, and to make a strong recommendation to move out of the residence halls on campus. This is based clearly on science and the COVID-19 statistics in Story County as reported by the Iowa Department of Public Health and the Story County Department of Public Health. As of September 5th, just 11 days ago, is the maximum cases that we've seen here in Story County since coming back to school in August. As of September 5th of this year, we are at 1,302 active positive cases in Story County. Now, that is not total. Currently, Story County has seen 3.1 thousand positive cases total during this whole entire pandemic. Time of September 5th, we were at 1,302 positive active cases at the time. Since then, in the last 11 days, we have not had an increase in positive cases since then. In the last 11 days, we've decreased by 60%, and to, as of today, September 16th, having 512 active cases as reported by the Iowa Department of Public Health this morning. As a student here at Iowa State, I find it concerning that we wish to send students home after 11 straight days of a negative decrease in cases and a negative trend. Currently, I think that we have seen our spike and our peak that every single outbreak has followed. We all talk about the curve and what we do with flattening the curve and what happens during an outbreak. And every virus and every outbreak of this pandemic has followed the same curve. After it peaks, it decreases naturally on its own. Now, through social distancing measures, we can, of course, decrease the number of cases we see. And at Iowa State University, we've done an excellent job of implementing those measures to prevent the spread, to promote the wearing of face coverings, to promote the physical distancing in our classrooms and in our campus buildings. I think Iowa State University has done a tremendous job of responding to the pandemic in that ways. I think we all know what causes an increase in spread of COVID-19, that being the bars, that being going out and putting yourself in harmful positions. That being said, forcing students to go away from campus and leave this safe piece of property that we have is absolutely ridiculous in my opinion. It's absolutely disastrous. Not only that, but to encourage students to leave their campus housing and to leave a group of people that are relatively safe from this virus and leave a demographic that is relatively unaffected by COVID-19, I think is absolutely preposterous. To send these 30-some thousand students home to their home communities and possibly start an outbreak in their home communities, bring it home to these communities that are relatively unaffected at this point, I think is absolutely disastrous, harmful to all their home communities, and just a nonsensical idea that we have. We've seen our peak, we've seen the decreases in cases, and I think it doesn't take a whole lot of more investigation to realize that we are on a downward trend and that this virus is only going to go down through the measures that we've already implemented so far. So I would urge the Senate to vote against this resolution and to please use common sense in the statistics that we have at our disposal to vote this resolution down. Thank you.
All right. I also ask senators per Bylaw 5.9.1 to close your laptops during both the program and open forum. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Liv Jones, and I'm a student of the College of Human Sciences. I will also be speaking in regards to the COVID-19 bill response. Today I'm appalled that this bill even exists. I'm appalled at the people that created it. I don't think that this is representative of what the student body wants, and this group is supposed to represent the student body. A student body filled with teachers, future engineers, veterinarians, scientists, and so many others. And you're telling me that you don't think that it is important enough that we stay and learn. I am a future family and consumer sciences educator, and you're telling me that when I can't learn the proper techniques to sew and budget, that I'm supposed to tell the kids that I'm teaching, I'm sorry, a pandemic got in the way. No, I need to be here. I need to be prepared to help my future students, and the individuals around me need to be prepared to help those in their respective fields. What we do today is going to affect years and years of generations to come. And I refuse to be told that I can't learn in the way that I need to because people are too afraid of this virus. A virus that will impact me and the majority of those around me little to no more than a common flu. If you're scared, you have the option to go home. You have the option to take online classes. Nobody is taking that right away from you. So I ask you not to take it away from those that want to be here and want to learn. I won't go home because I value my education and the education of those who come after me more than that. I ask you to vote no against this bill because I think that that's what's in the best interest of future generations. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Emily Potabom, and I'm from the College of Liberal Arts and Sciences. I'm here on behalf of the Society of Women in Physics and Astronomy. And so in the past few weeks, the physics undergraduate students have been having quite a few discussions regarding the university's response to the COVID-19 outbreak in Story County, as well as discussions with the physics department and faculty members. And in light of the overwhelming consensus we seem to have reached, I'm here to say we support the proposals to move classes online and for the university to share resources with Ames and the surrounding community. We have all expressed concerns about not only our own health and safety, but the health and safety of our professors and their families. We don't want classes to move online, but we feel that it needs to be done in order to protect members of the Iowa State community. And we have also recognized the impact that bringing students back to campus has had on Ames and the surrounding areas, which is why we are asking for our senators to support the proposal for the university to share resources with Ames. So our biggest concern is that we want the health and safety of ourselves and professors, faculty members, staff to be prioritized, and for the vote in student government to reflect that. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Akash Venkatramanujam, and I'm from the College of Liberal Arts and Sciences. I'm here on behalf of the Iowa State University Physics and Astronomy Club, and we urge the senators to pass this bill simply because of the effects that COVID-19 has had on our community already. 2 weeks ago, we got an email from the president saying that there was a 29% positive testing rate, and that rate, while it has gone down, still is happening, right? There is still community spread happening, and we are concerned for not just the safety of students, but also the professors, the non-teaching staff, and the Ames community in general. As Emily just said, we had a meeting with the physics department a week ago, where we expressed our concerns on the same issue, and we were able to reach consensus with the professors and faculty and the department, and we all agreed on the fact that while we don't want classes to go online, it would be the best option in this case to help mitigate further spread of COVID-19. Thank you.
Hi there. My name is Arman Gupta. I'm from the College of Liberal Arts and Sciences. I'm here to express my concern for this bill, mainly to hope that you guys vote against it. My main concern is just the fact that, I got two parents who are immunocompromised. One's a diabetic, one is obese, and I feel like, sending a population of 31,000 students back home where most of those students are probably at a higher infection rate than the other rest of the population in the country, or at least in their respective states. All we're doing is just spreading that infection other places we can't track. I don't know about you guys, but like when I go home, I'm still gonna go shopping or walk the dog or do other things that I'm still doing here. Most of my classes are online too, so I'm not going out that much either. I've got my mask on everywhere. I'm really just at my dorm room, maybe hanging out with like the two friends I've got. So, I don't know how many people out here, running parties every night or anything, because I think most people on campus are using common sense. And I think that like the other folks before me brought up, there's a lot of stats that just back the idea that, we're not doing as bad as some people might think. That 29% infection rate, that was, I think, 2 weeks ago, that was also from a population of students that had symptoms, so it wasn't representative of the total 31,000 students here on campus. I think last time I checked, it was just about 900 people infected who were students, and then 15 who were faculty members. And also, just kind of to reiterate the point that Miss Winterstein brought up last week, was that, it's at the discretion of the students. We all chose to be here. She did, give us the option to be online. She gave professors the option to be online. I know my history professor wanted to be in person, but she didn't have to do that. So we're all here on our own discretion. And I think that, if anybody's facing the consequences, or if any, I think we should face the consequences on our own decisions. It shouldn't be up to the whole university to make decisions for everybody when everyone chose to be here. That's about it. I hope you guys just vote no and take what everyone's about to say into consideration. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Andrew Brick. I'm from the Liberal Arts and Sciences College, and I would like to urge senators here today to vote in favor of the COVID-19 resolution. I'd like to begin my comments by addressing the concerns brought up by several people in this open forum about the numbers, which seem to indicate that we are on the downslope of our COVID-19 outbreak. While I agree that some numbers certainly do seem to be indicating that way, certainly the numbers released by the COVID-19 dashboard that Iowa State University have indicated that positive tests and positive cases have gone down. I believe there are quite a few numbers that I'd like to highlight that are actually indicative of quite a serious issue that was still going on with regards to our outbreak. Let me pull up my phone for a second to get the statistics I have. From the week of 8/24 to 8/30, which was the height of our outbreak, 753 individuals tested positive within our campus community, tested positive for COVID-19. That did drop to, I believe, 244 the next week, and then this week, 112. Those numbers do seem to indicate a downslope, but during those same times, from the week of 8/24 to 8/30, 73 individuals were in close contact quarantine for being within, I believe the criteria is within 16 feet for 15 minutes or more with a confirmed COVID-19 positive person. The next week, that increased to 294. And then for the week of 9/7 to 9/13, 819 individuals were in close contact quarantine. And I believe that indicates that while the positive testing and the target testing that the university is doing seems to be showing a downslope, we are missing quite a large number of people who perhaps aren't being tested, but are still being within contact of people who have COVID-19. And I think that it's very important to consider that still is a very serious issue, that positive cases are not the only number we need to look at, and then we need to consider the risks we're putting people in by putting them in contact with people who have COVID-19. Additionally, I would also like to say that while I do support the resolution and think you should vote for it, I think that you should vote against the SI committee proposed amendments to this bill. I think that they really take the bite out of it and don't, I think that it's necessary to call for the DOR to start moving people out of residence halls. And it's necessary to call for all classes to go online because at a certain point, we are essentially just calling for the status quo. So I think that's all I have to say, and thank you for your time, and I hope you can take that and everything else that everyone else has to say into consideration when you vote tonight.
Well, good evening. Can everyone hear me okay? All right, well, my name is Daniel Eisenstein. Some of you all might remember me. I'm in the College of Business. I'd like to preface this by saying it's an honor and privilege to have a chance to speak with you guys. Now, we have to admit, the COVID-19 pandemic is a matter of grave danger, and I'm personally horrified by the lack of reasonable safety measures being taken into account. The mask that I'm wearing today is a Honeywell full-face respirator with N95 filters. To filter viral particles, nothing less can be taken into account. I hate to break it to you all, but those cloth masks you're all wearing, it's not going to stop it. Now, the truth is, this virus does not only spread through the air. It can also spread through getting it in your eyes, or from what I read online, skin-to-skin contact, or looking at a sick person directly in the eye. Now, I'm aware of this resolution. One of the goals is to send everyone home, and I think that's a fantastic idea, but I have to say, there's still one amendment I would encourage you make. Before sending everyone home, you got to conduct another test of everyone, and anyone who tests positive must be euthanized. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Christopher Hayes. I am in the College of Liberal Arts and Sciences. I am speaking before you to encourage you to vote against this bill for the COVID-19 response. I am not a traditional student by any stretch of the means. I am 29 years old. I am coming back to college for a second time around after spending some time in the military. I am speaking up to voice the opinion on the actual education front. Online schooling does not give the appropriate amount of education. I am a chemistry major, as well as there are several others who are in the design college, who are in the engineering college, who require hands-on learning, required to be in a class that needs the actual teacher to speak and ask the questions to gain the knowledge. That cannot be adequately transmitted through an online class. In fact, the lab I am taking right now has already taken more than enough measures to stop any potential spread while in class. The class has been cut in half and we're on AB weeks. So my lab, I've already suffered for half the education that I would to get normally. I am asking you not to further hinder that education by trying to have the students to go back to online. I was here last spring, and the lab that I was in, it severely suffered. I did not get the same level of education that I had before we went to full online. I am also taking a language course that is much easier to take in person, where you can actually hear and have the conversation on understanding the language. In fact, my language professor, my French professor, prefers to have an in-person class. But like other people have said, we are on decline, and a lot of students had the choice and ample opportunity to choose to do online learning. Many have already chose to do that, and those who chose to be in person took in-person classes. I am just asking you not to take our choice of having online learning, our choice of having in-person class, and our choice to go ahead and take whatever risk may be that is allowed by any guidelines that we have to follow now. I thoroughly encourage you to oppose this bill. Thank you.
Are there any other students wishing to comment during open forum? Okay, then seeing none, we will move on to adopting the agenda. Are there any motions, comments regarding the agenda? Acting Speaker Gonzalez.
I motion to add 2020-2-048 SG seating members of the Election Commission under special orders and internal matters.
Where in special orders?
In special orders. Move it to the top above seating UROC senators.
Okay, there's been a motion to add 2020-2-048 SG, seating election commission members to the top of special orders. Is there a second? There's been a second. Is there any objection? Seeing no objection, it has been added. Are there any further amendments to the agenda? Senator Pfeiffer.
I motion to add 2020-2-15F to the agenda in new business.
There's been a motion to add 015F to the agenda at the top of new business. Is there a second?
Second.
Second, any objections? Then seeing none, it has been added. Senator Kloptowskis.
I motion to move 2020-2-030, support of Iowa State action to prevent a COVID-19 outbreak, to the top of special orders.
There's been a motion to move the bill titled 2020-2-030 SR to the top of special orders. Is there any objection?
Object.
There's been an objection. We will now move into a vote on whether to move the bill. Please raise your placards up for if you would like the bill to be moved to the top of special orders.
Point of information, is there no discussion on this?
We'll move into a 15-minute period of debate on the motion. Senator Kloptowskis, the floor is yours.
I meant the motion to support our students' time so they don't have to sit through other business for the bill. I yield.
Senator Zastro.
Just considering that we are seating 2 new senators, and that's currently the second highest, if we can move it below there so they could have input as well, I think that would be a better place for this bill to go. I yield.
Senator Kloptowskis, would you like to withdraw or amend your motion or call to question on the current motion?
I'd like to amend my motion to put 2020-2-030 below 2020-2-041 seating UROC senators.
Okay, so the motion has been amended to place it below the seating UROC senators bill. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, any objection to amending the motion? Okay, seeing none, the motion has been amended. We are still on debate on the motion.
Call the question.
It's been a call to question and a second. Any objection to moving the agenda item? And seeing none, it has been moved. Are there any further amendments to the agenda? Senator Zastro.
Motion to table 2020-2-011F Crew Club for 1 week.
Okay. And there's been a second. So there's been a motion to table 2020-2-011F Funding Crew Club for 1 week. And there's been a second. Is there any objection to tabling the bill? All right, it has been tabled. Senator Zastro, the floor is still yours.
Motion to add Senator Fahim to the roll.
There's been a motion to add Senator Fahim to the roll. Is there any objection? Okay, Senator Fahim has been added. Are there any further amendments to the agenda? Senator Pfeiffer.
Motion to add Senator Brown to the roll.
Is there any objection to adding Senator Brown to the roll? Seeing none, Senator Brown has been added as well. Are there any further motions regarding the agenda? There's been a motion to approve the agenda. There's been a second. Is there any objection to approving the agenda? There's been an objection. Do you withdraw your motion? I withdraw. Senator Adegarla.
I'd like to add myself to the roll, please.
Someone else can do that for you. Any objection? All right. Senator Adegarla has been added as well. Now, is there any motions regarding the agenda? There's been a motion to approve the agenda as it stands. Is there any objection? Then seeing none, the agenda has been approved. We move on to approval of minutes from last Sunday's special Senate meeting. Are there any amendments to the minutes from the special meeting? There's been a motion to adopt the minutes. There's been a second. Is there any objection? Seeing none, the minutes have been approved. We will now move into committee reports. First is rules with Acting Speaker Gonzalez.
Yes, so we talked about the sunset clause that we'll be seeing today in general orders, and then we did get to talk about establishing a campus affairs committee, and so if you have read through that bill, as you should, you'll see that there is a cabinet member that you might be interested in. It's kind of something new. We haven't done something like that before, but yeah, that's kind of what we talked about. And then we also introduced the hybrid and the proxy voting, bill in our special meeting on Sunday. And that is all. Thank you.
Okay, seeing no questions, we'll move on to finance with Finance Director Klass.
Yeah, loud. So we're seating at-larges tonight. They joined our committee last night for their first meeting. We are seeing Trend Magazine and student government line item transfer bills. Both of them were sent favorably by Finance Committee, meaning that they meet P&C. Audits are happening in COA, and so that's trucking along. And if you have any questions, please, during the debate, direct them to myself or the other senators on Finance Committee.
Then seeing no questions, we will move on to PR committee with Director of Outreach Crab.
Hi. Oh, that's loud. So we finished the first the Club Fest video and is now on the virtual Club Fest website. First meeting for Consent is Bay is 2.0 was yesterday. Consent is Bay is a video campaign that spreads message that consent is before anything else. So that's something we worked on yesterday. Yesterday was our first PR/outreach meeting, so that was really cool, and it was really nice meeting everybody. We have at-larges and senators hopefully being sat today, so look for that bill. We met with ISU After Dark regarding future plans on if it's going virtual or on how we're going to go about that. Right now we're just kind of doing a Kahoot for it. So both Anna and I had a meeting with the Director of Diversity and Inclusion, Lauren Perk, regarding future posts about COVID-19 and how it's affecting people of color within the Iowa State community. And then also, fun fact, we have stickers that came, so it just says Iowa State and then has Iowa State student government on the bottom. So if you want one of those cool stickers, come find me after the meeting. And then also if you want to do a Senate recap, find me as well. Thank you.
Right. Seeing no questions, we will move on to Diversity and Inclusion Committee with President Fritz.
Yeah, so an update from Director of Diversity and Inclusion, Lauren Perk, is that her committee will be seated tonight, and their first meeting will be on Sunday, where they will start working on projects right away. That's all.
We now move on to SI Committee, and that is with Senator Hovey.
Okay, sorry about that. Hi, everyone. So we had our committee meeting regarding the COVID-19 bill last Thursday. We had students, other committee heads, and other senators that were present, and we had a good lengthy discussion over this bill and what amendments to propose. We'll get more into it when we speak on it later tonight, but as a committee, we did decide to send the bill to Senate unfavorably. We also viewed the income share agreement bill, and as a committee, there were not any issues raised over this, so we moved to send it to Senate favorably. And lastly, we have our next meeting tomorrow night, and we will get started on a concrete list of project ideas that everyone has and try to get all members involved in at least one project. Thank you.
All right, then seeing no questions, we'll move on to Civic Engagement Committee with Senator Fahim.
So we have our first meeting planned for tomorrow at 2, and that's when we'll be discussing our plan for the rest of the semester. Besides that, we still have yet to meet, so that's all I got. Thank you.
Okay, we will now move on to comments from the executive branch. President Fritz.
Hello, everyone. My name is Morgan Fritz. I usually don't introduce myself, but there are a lot of new people here, so welcome, and I really appreciate you coming out tonight. So this week I had an athletics council meeting. So that was just speaking with faculty representatives that serve on the athletics council meeting, along with Director Jamie Pollard. So we just talked a lot about the financial implications of what's going on in the athletics program and how they're going to kind of deal with those. It's also very impressive. The athletes have seen an incredibly low rate of COVID-19, less than 2%. And the coaches believe that this is largely due to their commitment to social distancing guidelines and social responsibility. They understand that if someone on their team gets sick, that's the whole team out. So I think it's a really good thing that they understand they're doing it for other people, not just for themselves. So I think that's a good attitude for all of us to have, is that it's about protecting, our fellow Cyclones, not just about ourselves. I also attended the faculty senate meeting, just where I gave an update on student government happenings, and I really thank the faculty for all the work that they're doing this time. It's a tough semester for everyone around, for us in a learning regard and for faculty in a teaching regard, but I've been so impressed with how professors have been accommodating this and making the best of it. I kind of shared a funny example of I have a Zoom class right now. It's a Shakespeare class, and my English professor was in her living room on the Zoom call acting out Othello with her dog. So I thought that was just, quite funny. Never would I have expected to watch my English teacher acting out Othello with her pet dog, but here I am. So, I think it just goes to show that faculty are, really putting in the work to make sure that this experience is the best as possible for us. They really do care about our learning and want us to be as good as possible. And finally, today I had a meeting with the principals of renaming committee. We're just continuing to discuss the policies that will guide the renaming of process of buildings and other memorials on campus. And so another thing that I'd like to speak on is just the COVID-19 resolution being discussed tonight. So for anyone that's not aware, a resolution is a recommendation by the Senate. It simply requires a majority of the Senate vote, and it does not need my signature or anything from the executive branch. But I guess, my thoughts on the resolution are that I firmly do believe that the majority of students want to be on campus. We saw a record retention rate from last year of students who came back for their second year at Iowa State. I think that really shows that students want to be here on campus and they want to be in-person learning. There's also strong evidence that the spread is not happening in the classrooms. Hearing from the campus health team and Aaron Baldwin there, it's very strong evidence. The spread is not happening when people are in class or on campus. It's these off-campus gatherings, of people's private decisions, which the City of Ames and the university are doing the best that they can to help mitigate that. But as far as what they can control, I don't see that this resolution would solve what we're looking to solve. And further, I believe that there is, a certain mental health aspect to this. In an article I read recently, 1 in 4 students our age, ages 18 to 24, considered suicide during quarantine. COVID-19 is a huge deal, but there are other underlying issues that are affecting our generation. So, I would just ask people to think of the other implications of this bill and what that would cause for students. So I guess that's all I have right now. Does anybody have any questions for me?
Okay, then seeing no questions, we will move on to our general business. I would ask if the MU AV text could put the bill from Senator Advait's screen up to help assist people with the motion we're currently debating. And we will move on to external matters within external matters, general orders, and 2020-2-012F, Trend Magazine. And that is with Senator Bender. Can you, yes, okay.
Yeah, I propose Finance Committee amendments, and
The Finance Committee amendments have been proposed, and as they're committee amendments, they don't need a second, so they will just be proposed.
yeah, if you guys want to come
Great.
talk real quick,
So,
just talk about your org.
Senator,
Yep, just right up there.
Senator Bender, if you would, the floor is yours about the amendment now.
Call the question on the amendment.
It's been a call to question on the Finance Committee amendments. Second. All right, is there any objection? Then we'll go into a placard vote on the amendments. It's called for unanimous consent. Is there any objection to approving the amendments by unanimous consent? All right, and seeing none, the Finance Committee amendments have been approved. Senator Bender, still yours.
Yep, so if you guys would just like to talk about your club a little bit and why you're asking for the funds.
Today by my co-editor-in-chief, Megan Schaus, and our lovely finance director, Julia Baker. Trend Magazine is a student-run publication here on campus focusing around fashion, beauty, and lifestyle content. And every semester we produce a magazine, which obviously last semester with COVID-19 happening and the semester getting cut short, we were unable to finish our spring 2020 issue. However, we did then carry that over to this fall semester. We finished up our shoots last month at the end of August, and we're now moving into our next issue for this fall. Because we were unable to publish last semester, we're now looking to publish both of our issues together as one magazine, making it the first ever Trend Magazine that has 2 issues in one place. You want to talk?
Even though we are like a fashion, beauty, and lifestyle magazine, students of all majors join Trend. We have software engineers, we have advertising majors, business, finance. So it doesn't just, benefit the apparel merchandising major. It does benefit everyone in the university.
Yeah. So the reason why we're asking for funding is obviously we need to publish our magazine. It takes a lot of money, and that we need more money than just advertisers and PR people can get us. And the funding from ISU government that we always have semester after semester is always really helpful to get our magazine published, being that it's now an over 100-page magazine that costs thousands of dollars. As the semesters have gone on, our funding from ISU government has been decreasing, which then gives us less money to publish our magazine and leaves us to take it to advertisers and PR to raise most of our money for us, which can be quite difficult, especially now with COVID, because it's affecting how businesses are spending their money and not wanting to buy ad space. While our funds have been decreasing, our student involvement has been increasing. So in comparison to last fall of 2019, we have seen an over 30% increase in student involvement. As of this afternoon, we are at 216 students who are part of the club, and this is only growing by the semester. So in order to continue Trend Magazine, to continue opportunity for Iowa State students, we are asking for $2,000 for the semester to help us fund our biggest issue of Trend Magazine.
Yeah, I'll just yield my time for senators to discuss.
Okay, so Senator Bender has concluded the opening statement for the bill, and we move into the general discussion period. Senators have points for debate or questions or amendments. Please raise your placards and wait to be recognized. Senator Zastro.
Yeah, so I was in Finance Committee yesterday. Just a clarification, this bill would provide $2,000 for the fall semester and then also $3,000 for the spring semester. That is what we give to publications, is $3,000 per semester at a maximum. They have a carryover request since they weren't able to print the magazine in the spring, which means that they currently have $3,000 allocated for next spring. There's also a line item transfer that we'll be seeing either this week or next week. I'm not sure if it requires a second read, but that'll be transferring the $3,000 from the spring semester back to the fall semester, which is what it was originally allocated for, essentially. So after this is all done, if everything gets passed, it'll be a total of $5,000 for the fall semester, which is printing the spring and fall issue combined, and then $3,000, which is what we give standard per semester. So just with that clarification, this is a huge club that does a lot of stuff, and it would be an enormous disappointment if they weren't able to publish this. And just as a clarification, if you didn't get this money, you would not be able to publish. Is that correct?
Correct. I mean, it would be up to us students to fundraise the money ourselves. So the support of the ISU government is really necessary for us, and is something that we extremely appreciate every semester that we publish.
Yeah. So we treat a lot of different publications with the exact same way, giving them $3,000 per semester. This is a special situation since they're doing a double issue, and because they missed annual allocations because of their treasurer, which there's a new treasurer who has promised to come to annual allocations this coming year. I really hope you all support this bill. I yield.
Senator Springer. So I think the small mics might not go over the system, but they're picked up as long as they're green. So if you are using a small mic, you can project to the room and it's still working. Okay. But you can use a big mic too.
I also really support this bill. I'm majoring in psych and criminal justice, and my fall wardrobe is men's sweaters from Goodwill, but I still really enjoy the Trend magazine and like the fashion and everything. And I have friends in apparel merchandising and similar majors, so I know how much work goes into this magazine. I don't know if everyone here has looked through an issue, but it is incredible. And I know how much work everyone goes into it. And I know that we have a lower budget this year than normal, so I think we do need to be smart about where we spend our money, but I think this is a great place to spend our money because it's a huge club. It involves a lot of people from different majors, like she said, and I think it is a huge program for the people involved that positively impacts the entire campus and is a really big source of pride for those involved, and is something that makes Iowa State really unique and special. I yield my time.
Senator Hayes.
Hi, I just had a quick question about distribution for the magazine this year. And so I know that a lot of times I see it typically like in the library when it comes out. Where is it going to be distributed this year?
Party this year, so we are planning on standing outside of the library and distributing it to students who walk by, and also going around every building on campus like we have been doing and distributing magazines there.
Definitely, I like to hear it. And I would also like to show my support for this bill, especially because, yeah, just to reiterate, Trend Magazine has always been so inclusive and has of all students on Iowa State's campus, even like they involve anybody who wants to come and try out for the magazine. It shows a lot of different diversity in the students in all sorts of different ways, whether it be major or racially or, genderly. So in all sorts of ways, they are very inclusive, as well as they're inclusive in their events. Even if you are not in the magazine, they are open to go to the release parties typically. And I've shown up being completely uninvolved in the magazine, but I know that they always are welcoming and have a good time. And for these reasons, I'd like to show my support for this magazine.
Thank you. Senator Simonson.
Hi, thank you for coming. I just have a general question on what your total funding looks like. The money you get from both student government and your outside sources, how much of your funding comes from outside sources?
Do you want to talk? So most of our funding is going to come from advertising money. So we reach out to local businesses in the Ames and Des Moines area. We have a like advertising kit that we send to them, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if they want a full page ad versus a half page ad, those prices are going to vary. We also have our fundraising events. So we do typical fundraisers around campus, as many clubs do. We partner with things like Blaze Pizza, and a part of those profits go towards us as well. But obviously due to COVID-19, like those funds for us last semester got cut because we weren't able to have those events. But those are where majority of our funds go. And then anything that we get from student government goes straight to our printing process, which per semester is costing us about $8,200. Anything outside of that, we fund ourselves for stuff like events, getting venues, if we have any like pizza parties for our exec team, like all that money is coming from what we fund within events of the club. And then our last form of income is also committee dues. So each semester, committee members and directors, so all 216 members of Trend this semester are expected to pay either $20 to be in Trend for the whole year or $15 for the whole semester. We are holding off on those funds until after October 1st right now, tentatively, because if classes were to go all online, we don't want to have to deal with refunding people their money.
Awesome. And then just briefly, you mentioned that over the years you've gotten slightly less money from student government. Has that affected how much you're able to print or how the quality of the magazine at all?
Yeah, so as of, I believe, fall 2018, we were receiving $6,000, and now we are receiving half of that. A big part of why we're asking for this extra funding is because since we are printing a bigger magazine, it is going to be a larger printer cost, about $1,000 more, and it is going to cost about $17,000 in whole. Normally, per semester, we're looking at $8,000 just for printing, and as far as fundraising and dues, averages about $5,000, $6,000 per semester. So when you kind of take that into account, it can be close for how much we need to really produce the magazine. So.
Awesome. Thank you.
Acting Vice Speaker Advait.
All right, this is going to be very technical. If we can have the bill up on the screen, could someone from Finance Committee or the club please explain, the numbers don't add up on the first line. So these are the maybe Senator class, I'm sorry. Yes.
Finance Director class?
Yes, please, thank you. Can't do words.
Oh, you're looking at the total cost?
Right, one of the numbers in there needs to be zero, right? If the organization's paying $2,000 and we're paying $2,000,
Yes.
the total is incorrect.
Yes.
So is that $4,000?
Yeah, the total would be 4,000. I can't make amendments. So
I think you should be able to take that as a friendly.
You're proposing a friendly amendment to change the total to $4,000?
Right.
Senator Bender, do you accept? All right. We'll change it.
Right. And I guess now this goes to the club. I was just wondering why the costs for fall and spring are different, if you could elaborate on that.
As far as the cost to produce the magazine?
Right.
So, yes, so every semester we produce a magazine, correct? So usually the production cost for that is somewhere around $8,000. But last semester we were unable to produce a magazine because of COVID-19. And so we obviously want to showcase that work that all the students in Trend put into the magazine. So we would still like to publish that magazine. However, we still have to produce a magazine for this fall semester. So rather than putting out a spring issue last semester, because we weren't able to, we're now combining the two. So instead of producing one magazine that's usually around $8,000, we're now producing a magazine that's somewhere around $16,000 because of the combination. Does that make sense?
That does make sense. Thank you for answering my question. I mean, it looks like this club, Trend Magazine, is really active and really passionate about what they do. Oh, Finance Director class, please.
yeah, so it's not a difference in their production cost. If you look in the minutes from Finance Committee, it was an amendment to change the cost because they did not go through annuals last year. So PNC allows us to fund them up to $3,000, but in Finance Committee there was an amendment to change the fall printing to $2,000. And that was at the discretion of Finance Committee, not due to lower production costs from the club.
Gotcha. All right, sounds good. Thank you for that. I yield.
Senator Weathers.
Hi, thank you both or all three of you, excuse me, for coming. I've personally never read Trend, but I'm sure it's a great magazine. If it's something that supports as many students as it seems, I'm more than happy to fund it. But I do have a clarifying question, and you may have already spoken to it a little bit, but well, I understand a large portion of this increased cost is coming from publishing the spring edition as well. So what's the motivation for continuing to publish the spring issue? I guess what would be lost if you did not?
So last semester we had 8 different fashion committees, and each fashion committee produces their own photo shoot and spread for the magazine. We got done with 6 of those 8 photo shoots already before spring break had started. So we would be, if we chose not to produce the spring 2020 issue, we would be losing like 50 plus, or no, it would be 150 if you're including committee members, 150 plus students, like work that they have put into it for the entire semester. And then we would have to think about refunding their dues because they did pay for that semester already. So it would just be losing a lot of work that they put into it. And this is something that we, like anyone, can bring to job interviews. I'm pretty sure it's how I got my internship this summer, just all of my work on Trend, because it's something, you know, tangible you can hand out that's not just a resume. So we'd be losing a whole semester worth of photo shoots, graphic design, editorial stories, advertising, PR. It would just go to waste.
And if I could just add to that real fast, I mean, a tangible Trend magazine in a creative field like ours, whether it's advertising, PR, journalism, fashion, graphic design, photography, it is as powerful, if not more powerful, than our own resumes are. This is the work that we're handing to our future employers to tell them the kind of work that we're capable of producing. During a pandemic especially, this is saying a lot about us and our work ethic as students to employers and how it's going to affect how our jobs look after graduation. I mean, yeah, there's just a lot of work and effort that goes into this magazine that we can't afford to just tell people, sorry, we can't produce this anymore because of a pandemic. And I think the really great thing about Trend is that we're able to still produce it through a pandemic, and it says a lot about our work ethic. And yeah, there's just something powerful about having a print issue that something like a digital issue can't compare to.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate the word you used, tangible. That made it extremely tangible for me, so I yield.
Senator Hayes. It's been a call to question on the bill. There's been a second. Is there any objection? Seeing none, we will move into a roll call vote on this bill. When I say your name, please say yes or no or abstain. Adagarla. Edvate. Anderson. Bender. Brown. Emery. Fahim. Goff. Gonzalez. Hayes. Hovey. Kloptowskis. Lau. Lewis. Lona. Ludwig. Can't do that in the middle of a vote. Senator Mass. Pfeiffer. Rinchi. Simano. Schulte. Simonson. Springer. Stenzel. Weathers. Young. Zastro. Zavosky. Ludwig. All right, with a vote of 28 to 0, this bill is passed. Thank you. We will now move on to 2020-2-013F, Student Government Office Assistant Line Item Transfer with Senator Bender.
Yeah, if a finance director would like to talk a little bit more about the transfer.
Yeah, so if you look at the bill, oh, it's not up on the screen. Could we put that up on the screen? Thank you. So if you look at the bill, it's just moving money from the fall scholarships delineated. Oh, do you not have the memo? Okay. There's a memo attached with this that hopefully will be put in this drive soon. It's taking $1,000 from the scholarship for myself, $1,000 from the scholarship from Vice President Schrader, and $1,000 from the scholarship for President Fritz, which have already been paid, so it's extra money that we aren't going to use. If it just sits there, it gets taken back in our audits and goes to special project at the end. So we thought this would be a good place to take it from because it's already extra and we already know we're not going to use it, so that it can be utilized by student government. I will be sending an email to Mariana with that memo very shortly. But yes, if you have any questions, please direct them to myself or the other finance senators.
Senator Bender, the floor is still yours. Said under the new rules of debate, I'm sorry, I made a mistake on the last bill too. So yeah, so we'll move into general period of debate. If someone would like to call a question now besides Senator Bender, they could. It's been a call to question. Is there a second? Okay, heard a second. Is there any objection? No, then Senator Bender, the floor is back to you for closing statement. Senator Bender yields. So we will move into another roll call vote. Please say yes to have a line item transfer, no to not. Adagarla. Edvate. Yes. Anderson. Yes. Bender. Yes. Brown. Yes. Emery. Yes. Fahim. Yes. Goff. Yes. Gonzalez.
Yes.
Hayes. Yes. Hovey. Yes. Kloptowskis. Yes. Lau. Yes. Lewis. Yes. Lona. Yes. Ludwig. Yes. Mass. Yes. Pfeiffer. Yes. Rinchi. Yes. Simano. Yes. Schulte. Yes. Simonson. Yes. Springer. Yes. Stenzel. Yes. Samuel. Weathers. Young. Zastro. Zavosky. Okay, then with another vote of 28 to 0, the line item transfer has been approved. We have exhausted general orders. We will now move into internal matters within internal matters special orders. We have 2020-2-048 seating election commission members to election commission. That was added to the agenda, so I don't know who the sponsor is. So we'll go Acting Speaker Gonzalez.
Yes, just give me 1 second. Is Emily here? Emily Riswick? Okay, do you just want to come up and talk? This is just seating members to the election commission. And so there are vacant seats still available. And so if you want to go ahead and give those statements, go ahead.
Yeah, so we have 8 members in attendance tonight that are nominated for the election commission. I will be speaking on 2 members that were unable to make it, but they have statements that they gave to me, and I can speak on their behalf.
Senator Gonzalez, the floor is yours.
If any of the other election commission members want to give their statements, like they can come up too. I should have said that beforehand. My apologies.
So if you could stand 6 feet apart, go down the line, we'll kind of do what we did earlier for open forum. So thanks. Come on up.
Hi, I'm Dawson Schmidt. I am currently a junior here at Iowa State studying ag communications in the College of Agriculture and Life Sciences. Mainly, I joined the Elections Commission to kind of take a behind-the-scenes role of delegating in the elections process and kind of promoting the student body to get more involved in elections, as well as understanding the importance of our student government, and just kind of providing a voice and making sure everyone knows that their voice can and will be heard.
Yeah, just thanks.
Good evening. My name is Will Lapke. I am a freshman and studying ag business. I took interest in joining the Elections Commission to use my leadership skills to get involved, and I wanted to play a part in making sure the process for student government, elections, and really get my foot in the door for getting involved on campus, and this was one way that I could do that. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Trevor Poundstone. I am currently a junior studying management information systems. I decided to join the Election Commission because I wanted to make sure that elections were following COVID guidelines, as well as lower some of the minimum requirements so that it's more accessible to different students. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Bailey Dutcher. I'm a junior studying sociology currently. And I wanted to join the election committee because of the very hot topic right now of fair and equitable elections. And I wanted to make sure that our elections here at Iowa State are following those lines, as well as following COVID guidelines. And as well, I just wanted to get involved and see the process of student government for myself.
Good evening, my name is Ben Zigerman. I'm currently a freshman studying mechanical engineering. I joined Election Commission to help research and implement COVID-safe voting procedures. Thank you.
My name is McLean Bremner. I'm a sophomore. I'm studying business, and I just wanted to get more involved with the school and maybe work with the code enforcement section of the election committee.
Hello, I'm Jacob Jones. I'm a sophomore studying performing arts and political science. Working in the June primary this year really showed me how important elections are, and I just want to make sure that we have volunteers who can help work stuff and get stuff done.
Hi, my name is Young Ting. I am a junior studying finance in the Ivy College of Business. I've joined the Election Commission as I believe it's a great opportunity to get involved. Thank you.
One of our members, Elise O'Regan, she's a transfer student from Iowa State University, from here at Iowa State University. Her interest in election commission was she wants to bring diversity into election commission and hopes to bring more discussion in that regard. The next member would be George Pohl. George wants to be part of election commission to learn about the math behind the elections, of Senate seat apportionment, and how we run elections.
Great. Time has expired on Acting Speaker Gonzalez's opening statement, so we will now move into general debate. It's been a call to question. Is there a second? Second? Right, which is after the call to question. This has been a call to question and a second. Is there any objection? Okay, then seeing none, Speaker Gonzalez with closing statements.
Thank you for your guys' comments and statements. Yes, hopefully this sounds like a good election commission.
Okay, we will move into a placard vote. So call for unanimous consent. Is there any objection to approving the nominees by unanimous consent? Okay, then seeing none, the nominees have been approved to Election Commission. We will now move on to 2020-2-041 SD, seating UROC senators, and that is with Acting Vice Speaker Advait.
Yeah, if the nominees would please walk up to the podium, please.
Good evening. My name is Josh Hanyang. I'm a fifth-year senior studying management information systems from Waukee, Iowa. And last year I served in student government as one of the Ivy College of Business senators. This year I've been asked, along with former Senator Green, to join the UROC constituency to help fill some seats. And I couldn't be more grateful and delighted for this opportunity, given my experience in student government last year, as well as the crucial points that we're at right now in this semester, especially with the bills that we were discussing tonight. I thank Senator Klaudopouskis. I'm going to try it as best as I can, and Senator Zastro for fitting us in right before this, just so that we are able to participate in it. I promise that, from what I've heard and what we hope to be looking over, that both former Senator Green and I will make the right decision for students here. A couple things that I'm hoping to bring to student government this fall and hopefully in the spring, if we do still stay in person, is a look at Iowa State's community from a little bit deeper of lens. This summer, I got to know the members of Ames Black Lives Matter a lot more in depth as a member in marches, in demonstrations, and in community events over the summer. I like staying in Ames over the summer. It's very quiet, especially in a time of pandemic. I was able to social distance, but then when I was able to find people who were like-minded about those sort of COVID requirements, but still had the same fire in them for remembering our students of color and our students who are marginalized in this time. Because when I was first involved with student government, that was the thing that I was most concerned about. Obviously, you can't predict a pandemic, but you can kind of predict racism around here, and it's been a trend for a while. I hope that this year in student government that we continue to focus on these values that they've always inspired. I know the principles of community originate right from student government, and I hope that we can continue to focus on those as we continue to discuss things like COVID, funding student organizations, and all those hard decisions that we can't really say with a full heart this was the right call, because there's so many dimensions of it. We heard from students from Open Forum that students are starting to come to here, and I hope that I can provide a voice for some of those people who are afraid of coming in this room and all of these rules of order and technicalities, and make it a little bit more comfortable in a place where they can really be heard.
Hi everyone, Lydia Green, she, her, senior in political science. I'm joining student government today because I've joined almost every year, I guess, since I've started Iowa State, so this will be all 4 years. I've considered myself a natural public servant, always drawn to helping in any way I can, using my platform to help others. Similar to what Josh said, I find a particular interest within the diversity and inclusion aspect of student government. I will be / kind of have already been in communication with the director of that committee, and we have some plans that we want to enact for that we're also on Josh and I's platform, building our community events, stuff like that. So, yeah.
Senator Debate.
Would either of you please talk about one, I guess, passion project you have for your term as senator, and just why you want to be? I mean, I guess you talked about why you want to be a senator. Just please talk about some projects you might want to get done.
Okay, so like I just said, building our community events, this was a platform point from Josh and I's platform last year. Those will be events that kind of help foster some empathy within the community, create a space for students of color and to talk about their experiences and kind of just bring perspective to that, as well as we talked also with our platform about having office hours for senators to go out into the community that they represent. That's kind of, we'll see how that goes with the coronavirus situation, but those are the two #1 things that I would like to work on.
Two things I can think of at the top of my head for projects this semester. #1, mental health resources. Specifically, I know student government last semester in the spring, right before COVID, funded the TAO app. Hopefully that's still in development. Don't really know what it was, what the progress is over the summer, but hopefully, I know President Fritz talked about earlier, mental health is really bad for students in quarantine. So getting those resources to them, even if no matter what we do online, in person, that students are still getting those resources both from Iowa State and then from students who actually get what it's like to be in the classrooms or in their bedrooms from home. The other thing I would like to look at in student government is a little bit more about how we are communicating to student organizations, specifically with organizations like Black Lives Matter and Students Against Racism from last year. I know that there's a lot of students who may not want to be here for funding, may not be here for all the technicalities like I mentioned, but when it comes down to the social purpose of student government, that's when they show up and you hear their voices. I always say that I would love to see student government as full as it can be, and tonight it looks like we're near what we could be for capacity, so I think that's just an incredible thing. I'm really excited to potentially look at Ludwig's Campus Affairs Committee as well, just because that seems like a very great avenue for that sort of project.
Right. Time has expired on your opening statement, so we will go to Senator Rinchie.
Awesome. It's great to see both of you here tonight. Worked with you last year, learned to appreciate both of you very much. However, I must say that you are about to join the Senate at a very contentious time with this bill that's before us tonight. And so with no opinion on your position, how have you both prepared to represent your constituencies looking at this bill tonight to make sure that you bring forward their thoughts, knowing that you're now being brought on today? How have you prepared for tonight?
That's kind of a tricky question because I think proper preparation would include communicating with the constituency, but that's a little challenging considering we don't have our information listed for students to be able to contact us. So I think proper representation would require that. But obviously, we're both pretty active on campus and have communicated with a lot of different students from all of the areas, and just taking their thoughts into consideration. And obviously, that's kind of challenging within your own personal thoughts to do what you decide is best. But I guess we'll see what happens.
I think that UROC is a perfect constituency for us to enter into. I would trust myself a lot less if I was an off-campus student, talking about a college that I'm not in all the time, I don't understand all the demographics of, but I understand my neighbors and the people who are off-campus, maybe that their off-campus is back home, or maybe their off-campus is isolation in their own apartment because they contracted COVID. We can look at how students off campus are not entirely represented, especially in this COVID testing process, because of the prevalence of off-campus parties, kind of this gray area around, do I get tested, do I not get tested? I've never actually gotten tested in Ames, even though I lived here all summer. I always went down to Des Moines, even when tests were open in Ames, because I never had symptoms. But I've heard off-campus students saying,
hey, my roommate was asymptomatic, or I went out to these parties, but I didn't get anything. So each student's going to have that slightly different perspective, and we have to take all of those into their full part. I don't think, because of the groups that I'm in, I don't think that I'm seeing a lot of students who aren't social distancing, aren't out in parties. They're all saying, we've got to stay home, we've got to keep this here so we can continue doing classes. But then there's a good chunk of students who believe that we're past hope. As realistic and as unfortunate as that is, it's something you have to take in consideration. And as Lydia was saying, we can just hope that we make the right decision right here. And I know that I'm already spinning off of everything everybody said in open forum, because y'all brought some very valid points from both sides of the argument. So I thank you for that.
No, thank you. That's kind of a tough question. The last one I'd like to offer you guys is, please, or you both, sorry. Would you be willing to abstain from voting if you felt that you had a reasonable doubt that you were able to represent your students tonight? Now, I'm not imposing that you have that thought process, but if you resulted in it, would you be willing to abstain?
I think that anytime a senator feels uncomfortable, they don't have enough information on the situation to make a proper vote, that would be the perfect time to abstain. I don't personally feel like that's the situation for me currently tonight. I actually was listening during open forum and already have something written out that I kind of want to talk about. So yes and no, but I think because it has affected so many people that we know directly, it's kind of unfair to, I guess, say, not that that's what you're saying, but unfair to say that we wouldn't be equipped with the information to make the proper choice.
I think each senator here knows the weight of their decision, and I hope that you all, even if you haven't felt like you've spoken up for these, that you do, because Lydia and I are now coming into an environment that we haven't been in for over a semester. So I really want to vote on this, but currently, if you were to call it to a vote right now, I don't feel qualified to answer that question. So I hope that in the next hour or however long debate goes, that we gain enough information that I am able to make that choice internally. But right now, I would abstain.
Awesome. No, I really appreciate where you both are rooted on this. I think that you're really taking this all into consideration. So if I don't see any other placards, I would like to call this to question, please.
There's been a call to question and a second. Are there any objections? Okay, then seeing none, Acting Vice Speaker Advait with closing statement.
All I have to say is I know both of the nominees personally, and they're going to be incredibly passionate senators that are going to get great stuff done. I encourage you all to vote yes.
Great. We will go into a placard vote. It's called for unanimous consent. Is there any objection to approving the Senate or to seating the senators by unanimous consent? Okay, and seeing none, the senators have been sat. If they could talk with our Chief Justice Pro Tempore in the back and get sworn in quick before the next bill. But otherwise, thank you. So we will move on to 2020-2-03SR, support of Iowa State action to prevent a COVID-19 outbreak with Senator Zastro.
Yep, if I could introduce the amendments from SI committee.
Okay, so the amendments from Finance or from SI committee have been proposed by Senator Zastro. We will move into debate on those. Senator Zastro.
Yep, sorry, I'm trying to pull up the amendments. I don't see them on the Google Doc, but I know what they are. So there are two changes that the amendments make from SI. So the first one is removing the entire resolved clause, talking about the university taking action to move students out of Ames. For this one, I've gotten a lot of feedback from students, and most of that feedback has been in favor for moving classes online. There has been a lot less support for this specific part of the bill for moving students out of Ames. I think we heard that tonight in person, and out of the probably 3 dozen emails that I've gotten about this bill, I would say probably at least 2/3 of those mentioned at least some level of concern about this. I'm more than fine with this being taken out of the bill. I think that students, if classes do move online, which is still part of the bill after this amendment goes through, if classes do move online and students feel as if they have a safe home environment where they can properly learn and they believe that it's safer to be at home, they can do that. I don't think at this point that Iowa State should be forcing students from a higher risk area to go home. I appreciate the insight that I've gained on that since I've proposed this bill. Also, the issue on Greek housing is being taken out with this amendment. That was a mistake on my part. I apologize for everybody who's concerned about that. University doesn't have jurisdiction over that. That's private property. CPC and IFC have precautions that they're taking on their own, and every chapter additionally has a lot of things that they're keeping in mind. They have special policies. Then the second part of the amendment, if we could pull that up on the screen, please. The second part of the amendment changes the second resolved clause, and that changes it so it would change our recommendation from being all classes go online to classes where you cannot have you cannot complete the objectives of that course without an in-person component. That's the other major area where I receive criticism for this bill. And I think that this is a good amendment. I'm going to support this amendment. I'd like to hear other opinions if there are any. But I think if we can continue to have lab classes in person, if we can continue to have studio classes in person, engineering classes where software is only on computers, in computer labs, I think that's a really vital aspect to students' education. And I have classes online. I've been in quarantine recently. Taking classes online is not always fully supplemental, even if the university thinks that it is. And I understand that. I understand that classes online are not as good as classes in person. One of my majors is philosophy, and just reading about philosophy instead of talking about it is miserable. That said, I still think that those kinds of classes need to go online, because removing the incentive for students staying in Ames by having classes in person, if they think that they can go home, will also reduce spread off campus. I understand that transmission in classes isn't an enormous percentage of what's happening in Ames, but removing the incentive for having people to stay in Ames I think is also important. So I'll yield.
Great. Senator Anderson. It may be on for the video, but it might not.
It's working? Okay. I'm good.
Acting Speaker Gonzalez.
This is just a point of information, but the bill that you're seeing online in the Google Drive right now, that one isn't the one with the amendments that they proposed. Advait has his up, so he's like controlling that one, and he'll upload it afterwards, and I'll see if I can get it like to our Google Drive right now, but the one that you're seeing isn't the one that we're going to be using, if that makes sense.
So the amendments are on the screen. They're not in the Google Drive. Acting Speaker Gonzalez will take now to add the suggestions into the Google Drive, but it might be a little bit.
Yes, perfect.
Do you yield? Senator Weathers.
Yes, I'm also one of the co-sponsors of the bill, and I received a similar amount of feedback, and I think I'm in agreement with the amendments from SI for the most part. However, I share your concern, Senator Anderson, that the amendment regarding classes moving online isn't restrictive enough. I think professors have already done what they think to be enough. So maybe if anyone had any ideas on how to change that, that'd be a good idea going forward. Also, I think I'm in favor of letting students stay in residence halls if they so choose. However, I've received emails from a lot of constituents that feel uncomfortable staying in residence halls. However, they cannot leave because they've already signed the contract, and if they were to do so, they would have to continue to pay 50% of the cost that for the remainder of their term. So it wouldn't be feasible for them to move into an apartment, pay that cost, and then still pay 50% of their dorm fee. So if there's any way we could recommend a reduction of that price or an elimination of that price, I'm not entirely sure on what the university could do, but I think that would also be a good idea going forward. If anyone wants to address me specifically on that, I would appreciate it, but I yield.
Pfeiffer.
So I also received an email, pretty much exactly the same thing. Somebody uncomfortable with staying in the dorms and wanted the option, the choice to be able to move out with a reduced fee. And I think that's reasonable. If we could somehow create a amendment that encourages the DOR to reduce this fee to a more reasonable amount so that it can allow students who are in the dorms to choose to stay on campus if they think it's worth the risk, or to move out if they do not. And I think giving the students that choice is a much better alternative than anything else we could do. So I yield.
Thank you. I would like to remind senators that we're on this amendment. So I think that was a germane point, but I think further discussion on what percent the refunds should be or anything like that would not be germane to the current amendment, although discussing that you prefer that to the line that it's striking would be germane. Senator Stenzel.
One thing before I start talking, can we leave the resolution up on the screen, please? I've just looked up there a couple times. So I'm going to yield. Just leave it on the screen so I can look at it, please. Thank you.
You yield? There's been a call to question. Is there a second? Okay, there's been a second. Any objection to voting now on the amendment? Okay, then we will go into a placard vote. Please raise your placards up for yes. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. For abstentions? Okay, and Ludwig? Or Mass? Ludwig? Can't do that in a vote. With a vote of 25 to 2 to 3, the amendment passes. We will now go back to Senator Zastro's opening statement.
This is obviously a really important bill. The university takes our recommendations really seriously, and with these amendments in place, I agree that the saying that only classes that must be in person are in person might be a little toothless, and I do share that concern. I would be more worried with going in the opposite direction and trying and failing to make an exhaustive list of classes that need to be in person, because as well as we represent the students of Iowa State, I'd be worried that if we tried to make a list of labs and studios, ... we would still end up missing something, and that would do more harm than good. For the bill as a whole, I do think that there are a few notes that I should cover. So just addressing some points that were made in open forum. First, the shape of the curve has been brought up a couple times in Ames. My worry about this is that it's not necessarily that we have a peak and then we have a decline. It doesn't necessarily look like a bell curve. We thought that we had peaked way back in late April, early June as a country. And then we had a second peak. And whether or not we have a second major peak in Ames is contingent entirely on the actions that we take now. We are not guaranteed to continue going down regardless of our trajectory unless we take action to ensure that we continue the direction that we're taking. In addition, if we're talking about the direction that we're going, I think that we're missing a larger point about how are we being affected. Because if we have, obviously this isn't the case, but if we have 20,000 cases and go down to 15,000, that's still a disaster. And we're not at that point. I'm not saying that we are. But even if we're having 150 students, if we're having 200 students a week who are testing positive, if we're having 800 students a week, as we have right now, who are in quarantine, I think that's a serious issue. Regarding the positivity rate, so a couple weeks ago we had a positivity rate that was almost 30%. Last week it was closer to 20. This week it's closer to 15. When we have a positivity rate above a 5 to 10% level, what we're doing is we're missing people who are positive. Because if we're testing people who have symptoms, we're not going to be able to test people who are positive but who are asymptomatic and who continue to spread the virus. The college environment is one where, as it stands right now, you might go to a class and you might not be super close to somebody for a long time, but you're still exposed to people. If you live in a dorm, you are in the same area as other people. If you are going to dining halls, you're in the same area as other people. And so even people who are doing the best that they can are still going to come into contact with a good amount of people every single day, as long as classes continue to be in person. And that's just one way to reduce that. If we're able to reduce how many people that the average person sees per day, that is a very effective way to slow the spread. And it's an especially effective way to slow the spread among asymptomatic people who might not be acting like they have COVID because they don't know that they have it. As far as collective versus individual risk goes, I've heard some comments that people who want to stay home can. When I was quarantined for a total of 20 days, including 10 days where I believe I had COVID, my classes were not the same. The 3 classes that I had in person were online. 2 of those, I do not believe that I got an equivalent education. That is not because the class was online, and that's the reason. It's because professors have an expectation, and whether they're cognizant of it or not is one thing, but they have an expectation that people are...
30 seconds.
Thank you. That people are getting the education that they're providing, and the people who are taking it online are something of an afterthought. Lastly, as far as mental health goes, it is far worse to have students going in and out of quarantine than it is for students to never be in quarantine at all and be taking classes online. I would much rather be taking classes online with the ability to go outside, to go into my living room, than to be quarantined. And it is much better for your mental health that way. Thank you.
We now move into the general discussion of the bill. Senator Stenzel.
First off, Senator Zastro, I just want to say thank you for keeping an open mind and open dialogue about this. I think you've done a really good job, especially considering some of the reactions that you got right off the bat from a lot of people. So props to you on that. As far as my stance goes, I'm going to be voting against this bill today. Most of the students I've talked to want to stay on campus and continue to have the few in-person classes that they do want to take. And I also want to take this chance to encourage the Senate to not waste time sharing our opinions and beliefs about the virus or its severity, because we're not virologists. I'm not a virologist, and none of us are. So I think we shouldn't waste time talking about that. We should talk about the contents of the bill. So without rambling on too much, I will be voting against. And let's just keep the discussion based on the contents of the bill and its implications. Yield.
Senator Springer.
Before I begin, am I allowed to make an amendment to the bill after I speak?
Yes.
In the same, okay, thank you. So I have a couple comments before I make an amendment. So I agree with Senator Stenzel, but I also, after open forum where students spoke, I feel like it is important to say that it is more serious than the flu. And when we're talking about this bill and the severity of COVID and how that weighs on our decision, we need to be accurate about what COVID is and about the dangers of it. It is more serious than the flu, and I think we should be taking that seriously and accurately. There was also an interesting statement in open forum about how we've all chosen to be here. And we've all chosen to come to Iowa State. We all want to be on campus. This is my last year. Obviously, I don't want to go online. I don't think a single person in this Senate or in the entire campus want to go online in a normal situation. However, I think as representatives of the entire student body, we need to put our own personal preferences after what we think is best for our constituents. And I think that while individually you personally make a choice to come here to college and to campus classes if that's what you like, individuals do not have a choice when on campus to feel secure in their safety as much as they may like because of the actions of other people who are not respecting the mask mandate, social distancing mandate. I'm comfortable being on campus wearing a mask when everyone else is wearing a mask and when I can feel confident that these people have not been breaking social distancing suggestions in their free time, but I don't have that confidence. So I don't have the choice to not go to class and feel as safe as I should. I wasn't so sure about the bill before the amendments from SI, and I think it's a lot more middle grounded now. I really support it. I think it still gives students the ability to have as close as possible to a good educational experience while also prioritizing the health of not just the campus, but of the community around us. Because you can't have a good college education if you are sick in bed and can't move. So with that, I would like to amend the second resolved clause to read. So I would like to change that the university take action to move online all non-essential in-person classes that can still maintain a similar quality of instruction. I would like to take that and change it to that the university administration encourage staff to reevaluate the absolute necessity of in-person instruction. I think that reflects what we...
Senator Springer, can you wait for debate to be ready and then say it word by word so we can get it on the screen? Thank you.
That the university administration encourage staff to reevaluate the absolute necessity of in-person instruction. And then take out the rest of that sentence and keep the for any classes which do not. I think that just reflects what we were talking about in debate, that resolve clause was kind of already in place, and this can encourage professors to look again at how necessary it is to have in-person instruction. Because I agree that there are some classes that really can't be taught online, like...
Senator Springer, I'm sorry, I'm going to stop. So you've made the motion. Is there a second?
Oh, I'm sorry.
Okay, so there's been a second. Is there any objection to the consideration of the amendment? Okay, then seeing none, Senator Springer, you have a new speaking privilege starting on the amendment.
Thank you. yeah, like I said, I think this reflects what we were talking about in debate. I think this will encourage professors to look at the necessity again. I'll yield.
Okay. So we are on consideration of the amendment. Senator Young. No.
Sorry, can I yield until we go back to general discussion?
Yes. That won't count as a speaking privilege. Senator Rinchie.
Yes, I would like to. Can I move to make an amendment to the amendment?
You
and
can.
No.
No, you can. Yes.
Oh, shoot.
No. You may. You may
I
make a
did?
secondary amendment.
I can't. We're good. Awesome. All right. I really like where you were taking this, Senator Springer, and I would also like to add at the end of it something about handling each class in a case-by-case analysis, because I would like to still see, like, I can give an example of a 400 level class I'm in. I have a lot of seniors who are taking the precautions very seriously, and they're doing a great job of handling those classes, and I don't want their experience to be jeopardized by students who are not taking precautions very seriously. And if they see a case-by-case basis where, you know, in Ag 495, they're not taking it serious, but in Ag 494 they are, then that way those in 494 are not penalized by the actions of 495. And I should, if anyone thinks of a great way to help me write this amendment, I would love to take it. But I would just to say, Stenzel, do you have something to add on this? Yeah, I'll ask you a question. What do you think right now? What? Yes, please.
I move to amend the amendment by adding on a case-by-case basis to the end.
There's been a secondary amendment proposed to the primary amendment. Is there a second? Is there any objection to the consideration of this amendment? Okay, then seeing none, and seeing no objection, we will go into debate on the secondary amendment. Senator Stenzel.
I yield.
Senator Zastro.
As a question for the acting vice speaker, is the bold, italic, and underline, that's just formatting to demonstrate the secondary amendment?
Right, I can't make a suggestion to a suggestion in Google Docs, so that's what I'm going with.
All right, got it. Thank you. Yeah, I think this wording is good. If there are no other placards, I'll call the question on the secondary amendment.
Second. It's been a call to question and a second. Are there any objections to voting on the secondary amendment? There's an objection to voting now on a secondary amendment. Senator Zastro has withdrawn his call to question. Senator Fahim.
I just wanted to add a consideration onto this second amendment. So Senator Zastro brought up that it wouldn't be possible to make an exhaustive list, and I agree with that, but I think that as student government, we should have input onto how professors review their classes on that case-by-case basis. Would it be possible for us to set up guidelines in some way, not have a whole list, but some sort of guidelines, and then perhaps like a reviewing committee? I know that we were thinking of having the campus affairs committee, and I think that would be a good place for campus affairs to step in once that's set up. So I just wanted to see if that was a possibility.
Is that a question to any? You have to direct your question towards someone.
Senator Stenzel.
I agree that that's a very valid concern, but if we're not careful, we're going to get into amendment inception here in a second. And so I think we pass this one, get back to the initial amendment, get back to the original bill, talk about that, and then look at your question and maybe a committee meeting later. So I'll call the question on the secondary amendment.
You can't call a question on someone asking you an actual question. So Senator Fahim, back to you.
I yield my time. That sounds like a great solution.
There's been a call to question. There's been a second. Any objection to voting now? Great, then we will do a placard vote on the secondary amendment. So there's been a call for unanimous consent. Is there any objection to approving the secondary amendment by unanimous consent? Okay, then seeing none, the secondary amendment has been added to the primary amendment. We are back to the primary amendment with Senator Stenzel.
I like how this reads, and so I will support this amendment. I yield.
Been a call to question. and a second. Is there any objection to voting now? And seeing no objection, we will go into a placard vote on the amendment. There's been a call for unanimous consent. Is there any objection to approving the amendment by unanimous consent? And seeing none, the amendment has been approved. We are back onto the bill as a whole. With Senator Springer, you have 1 minute and 12 seconds left on your speaking privilege.
I guess I'll use this to address Senator Fahim's question. I think it's a little unnecessary. I think if we get into a whole committee, or give it to a committee even to look over every professor's decision, I think that's going to become a very long process. And I think these decisions, if we do pass the bill in a whole, need to be done pretty quickly. I think we should trust that professors have a sincere and accurate outlook on the necessity of their class being in person. I don't think it's something that we as a Senate need to review. I think we can trust their judgment, and it doesn't need to be a whole other secondary process for every single class that is still in person to review their decision. I yield.
Senator Fahim.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think it could be a little bit overwhelming. I do think, though, that having guidelines would be a really good idea, and if some sort of reporting system, if students felt like their professor was not taking their concerns seriously, that way we could intercept that. Because coming into the university, most of the professors were under the assumption that they would only have in-person classes if need be, and then have online classes for everything that wasn't absolutely necessary. But I've heard from a lot of my constituents that that's not true. They have certain classes that could be online, things that are just discussion-based that you could have Zoom discussions over, and they're still in person. And so in those cases, I think that those professors aren't taking their students' concerns wholeheartedly. And so, yeah, I think that would be a good place for a secondary body to step in, and being student government, I think we should be that secondary body. I yield.
Senator Young, did you want to use your speaking privilege now?
Can I wait just a bit, please?
Yes. Senator Emery.
Yeah, so I agree with what Senator Springer was saying. I think a committee would be a lot of unnecessary bureaucracy. I believe the university has already put in a lot of great measures, and they've assembled all these task forces with people who know a lot more than we do. And so I think it would just be kind of unnecessary, and just, yeah, it would take more time. I also think that people already have the option to reach out to their professors and say, hey, I think this class could be online, and kind of voice their opinion directly to them. If the professor doesn't listen, the Student Accessibility Center, they do a really great job with letting students reach out to them and make accommodations and requests and stuff. So I think making an exhaustive list or setting up a committee or anything would just kind of be a waste of our time and a waste of a bunch of other people's time. So I yield.
Senator Schulte.
Yeah, so whenever we look at Iowa and Iowa State, currently Iowa State has a in-person rate of at least 44%. 44% of classes have some sort of online in-person component. Meanwhile, Iowa has only 25% of classes in person. I think we definitely need to do some scaling down, and I think that only way that's going to happen is if we have, as Senator Fahim has suggested, some sort of guidelines. Some classes don't need to be in person and continue to be in person. I think if we set up a set of criteria that, hey, you know what, this class can be transferred. Is it ideal? No. But is it something that will make our life safer? Then yes. I think that is something we need to work on, because there's no reason why Iowa should have 20% less in-person classes. I understand that Iowa State has arguably some more experiential learning majors, and we are a larger experiential learning school, But Iowa also has the med school, which I feel like is a large percentage of in-person classes. So I just question why we have such a higher number of in-person classes than our neighboring schools. I yield.
Senator Hovey.
I also agree with Senator Fahim. We should be looking at specific guidelines that really define what classes should be online and what shouldn't. You know, there are a lot of professors that I feel like may not want to make the effort to go fully online because it is difficult and it is a lot harder on professors and as well as students. But, you know, I think this bill is, you know, talking about ISU action in the event of a COVID-19 outbreak. And in the event of a COVID-19 outbreak, I think that it would be really worth it to have guidelines in place to see which classes should be in person and which classes should go online. I yield.
Acting Speaker Gonzalez.
While I appreciate the sentiment of wanting to get student government involved in setting up guidelines like that, I would say that bringing so much of our discussion and our time around a hypothetical would not be a wise use of our time right now. If you would want to pursue a project like that, which I would completely support, we can talk about that like later on, and then you could bring up a bill. But there is only a certain amount of allotted time for this bill, so I think it would be wise for our body to discuss the bill in its entirety and other parts of it. Because I think that a lot of people are watching, a lot of people are waiting to see, and so I think running around like a hypothetical guideline body review board isn't very smart right now. But I would be anticipated to see how that goes. So yes, please let's divert our attention to the bill as a whole again. Thank you.
Lona.
Yeah, so this bill as it stands as a whole, there is no resolution for financial compensation for students. And I know within the College of Engineering, I'm speaking for a lot of students in that and labs can be very expensive. So if we do decide, if we go through with this resolution and those engineering students lose that option of having in lab, there won't be any financial compensation for that. And yes, we can go into hypotheticals as to maybe we can have a conversation, but like Senator Gonzalez said, this bill as it stands now, I'm not comfortable with it in that, again, there's no financial compensation for students and tuition was not lowered this semester. So I will be voting no.
Senator Simonson.
To address the previous discussed, the point to reduce financial penalties to students who move out of the dorms, if they want to move out of the dorms. I move to amend the bill to add a third resolved line after the first two to read that the university and Department of Residence work together to minimize financial penalties to students who wish to move out of Ames for reasons of personal health.
Can you either give that to the Vice Speaker
I sent it to him.
You got it too? All right. So there's been a proposal for a third resolved clause, and there's been a second. Is there any objection to consideration of the amendment? Okay, then seeing no objection, we will move on to discussion on that amendment with Senator Simonson.
I yield.
Senator Weathers.
Yeah, I've also been working on some language for that same idea.
Okay.
Can you read it one more time, Ed? I can't see it up there.
That the university and Department of Residence work together to minimize financial penalties to students who wish to move out of Ames for reasons of personal health.
Okay, I have a suggestion for an amendment. It's up to you whether or not you take it, Senator Simonson. After penalties, comma, including breaking fees for housing contracts and meal plans, especially those living in shared spaces.
That sounds real good.
Okay, so there's been a secondary motion or a motion to add a secondary amendment after penalties. Do you want to read that again?
Yeah, I will. Comma, including breaking fees for housing contracts and meal plans, comma, especially for those living in shared spaces. I'm a little bit lost here, so maybe another comma would do.
Can you just read it slowly as Vice Speaker Debate tries to write it in?
Yeah, I'm sorry. Including breaking fees for housing, I think he's got it all there. Okay, comma, especially for those living in shared spaces, comma.
Okay, there's been a secondary amendment. I heard a second. Is there any objection to the consideration of a secondary amendment? There was no objection. We went on to debate. There's been a call to question on the secondary amendment. Is there a second? Is there any objection? Okay, then we'll go into a placard vote on the secondary amendment. It's called for unanimous consent. Is there any objection to approving the secondary amendment by unanimous consent? Okay, so the primary amendment has been amended, and Senator Weathers. Senator Zastro.
First of all, would the author of the amendment take it as a friendly to add and be it further to the end of that?
Yes.
Yeah.
Great, thank you.
It's a friendly amendment. Great.
Then, as far as the content of the amendment goes, when I was writing this bill, it was something that I was considering as to whether or not this should be included. I was originally hesitant to do it because I thought the university might be more willing to just brush off the bill as a whole if they were worried that it would hurt them financially. Considering the email that we were sent, I think it was earlier today, about how the university is extending the dates for withdrawal, I'm much more welcome to this kind of amendment. I think that this would be good. I don't know enough about the system with student workers to know if that needs to be added to this amendment. If somebody is more aware of what happened last semester, I would encourage them to use their voice now. I yield.
Senator Pfeiffer.
Would it be considered a friendly to change students who wish to move out of Ames to students who wish to move out of university housing?
I would consider that friendly.
Then
Yes.
I propose...
Yeah, I will accept that as a friendly amendment.
Okay.
Do you yield? Okay, there's been a call to question on the amendment. Second, any objection to voting now on the amendment? Then we'll go into a placard vote. It's a call for unanimous consent on the amendment. Is there any objection to approving the primary amendment by unanimous consent? And seeing none, the amendment has been approved. We are now back on the bill with Senator Simonson.
I yield.
If there's no further discussion, I yield.
Senator Young.
I just wanted to address a point that was made earlier about not supporting the bill due to not having this being read as classes moving fully online and wanting to move students off of campus. I don't think that's how it reads as it stands, and I just wanted to clarify that moving forward. And then I have a couple of other points to make as well before we move forward. So I'm a concurrent student here and at the University of Iowa, and Iowa Student Senate wrote a letter with a similar theme to this resolution, advocating for online education to avoid an outbreak in the community on August 4th. As mentioned by both President Fritz and President Winterstein, the university is reporting low transmission in the classroom, with suggestion that the majority of transmission is occurring out in the community. And as a student working towards a Master of Public Health, I am most concerned of the threat to the members of the Ames community who are unwillingly being exposed to students
who are not following the CDC COVID guidelines and are therefore continuing to spread the virus. Coronavirus is deadly and people are dying, and we have a voice that we could potentially save the lives in this community that supports us. And President Winterstein reinforced us last week that the university is not currently providing any resources to the Ames community. So I think that we should step up and speak up and change this. And as another point of clarification, it was mentioned by President Fritz that the student athletes have managed to have a positivity rate of under 2%. And as a tutor for student athletes, I can speak to the fact that at least my athletes that I have tutored, for the most part, have been remaining in bubbles and have been instructed to take all of their classes and tutoring completely online. Thank you, I yield.
Rinchi.
Thank you, Senator Young. And I really appreciate where you're coming from with this bill, but I have some very serious concerns about what would happen if we went fully online. So I sent out a poll to some of my constituents, and I got 939 responses. And out of those, 77% said that they wanted to stay on campus taking in-person classes. And a massive driver behind that was we're in Iowa. We have a lot of rural students, and a lot of those students, especially in the Cal's constituency, don't have access to proper healthcare at home, internet access. And if they went to fully online classes, I can speak for a lot of families that you're going to get a call from home saying you need to come back and work if you're not taking classes in person. And when I've got constituents who live in the Sandhills in north central Nebraska, and they're an hour away from any medical care in a community of people who are much older than them, they're putting all of them at risk. If they don't have internet at home, they have to go to community space. And I've already heard back from some of my constituents who talked about being moved fully online and having gone home and been asymptomatic and ended up losing family members because they didn't know that they transmitted the virus to them. And that's a lot of gravity to put on students. We're talking about mental health here a lot tonight. And I think that that it's really important that we look at ourselves separate than Iowa because we have a very different community, comparable but different, and that we keep our classes in person as much as we can because that keeps as many students here as we can, so long as they're following those procedures. And if they're not, then we need to move them online because we need to protect ourselves. And if they're not going to follow the guidelines here, I don't think they're going to follow them at home. And I couldn't vote in favor of something like that, knowing that I could be causing pain and loss in those rural communities. So thank you for the sentiment. I just simply disagree.
Acting Vice Speaker Advait.
So I've been listening to the debate for a while, and it really looks like what this body is agreeing on is we need choice. Choice is the most important factor here. If someone feels unsafe, they should be able to have an equivalent online alternative, and I don't think that's being reflected in the bill right now. So I'm going to move to amend the second resolved clause. Oh, I need to type too. This is going to be interesting. I'm going to move to add to the second resolved clause that the university administration encourage staff to give equivalent options to students for in-person and online classes and reevaluate in whatever's in there already.
Okay, there has been an amendment and a second. Is there any objection to the consideration of the amendment? Seeing none, we will go on to debate on the amendment with Acting Vice Speaker Advait.
Yeah, and if any of you think this could be worded better or have any concerns, please let me know.
Do you yield?
I yield, yes.
Senator Stenzel?
Maybe I should have objected instead, but I feel that this kind of changes the intent of the bill. So I just feel like this, I feel like I know what you're getting at, and I think it would just be a separate bill. And I think we're just getting really sticky with this one. So I'm going to vote against these amendments. I'm going to vote against the bill as a whole, but I do agree that something should be done so that students have the alternative. I yield.
Senator Zastrow?
Yeah, similarly, I think that, even just the resolve clause, I think that this significantly changes what it's discussing. because the way that it's stated right now, I mean, this is just, it says give equivalent options for students for in-person and online classes and reevaluate the absolute necessity of in-person instruction on a case-by-case basis. I think those two things contradict each other. In the minutes for SI committee, I noticed that this was a sentiment that was had in general, that options was something that SI favored, and I'll try and keep this germane to the amendment. But I think this is a separate issue, and I think that it also kind of weakens even just this resolved clause, because if we are trying to reduce the transmission between classes, if you're having people who are being irresponsible off campus coming in campus and spreading it to people who are being responsible, I don't understand how the option to go online really fixes that problem. So I'm against this amendment. I support the sentiment, but I think this is a separate issue, and I'll yield.
There's been a call to question on the amendment and a second. Is there any objection to voting on the amendment? Seeing none, we'll have a placard vote. Please place your placards up for yes. Up for no. Yeah, all right, and up for abstentions. Then with a vote of 0 to 30 to 0, or to 1, since Senator Klopotowskis is still on the roll, the amendment fails. There's been a motion to strike Senator Klopotowskis from the roll. Is there any objection? All right, there we go. So the vote was 0 to 29 to 1. That's my apologies. We will go back to Senator Avoit. Yields. So Senator Stenzel.
I would like to use Senator Mass's speaking privilege. Do I have permission?
Go for it.
May I yield to President Fritz?
Yes.
Yeah, so, one thing I heard earlier that Senator Young stated was that that the athletes are living in the bubble and that they've all chosen to take online classes, but that's really not the case. Many of them still are taking in-person classes, and they feel comfortable doing so because, they feel very safe going to their classes because the spread is not happening in the classrooms. Additionally, all faculty are supposed to have backup plans in place for students that are in quarantine. That means, theoretically, if a student does choose that they don't want to go to class, there are plans in place, for them to be able to take. I would also like to reflect that, we are different than the University of Iowa. University of Iowa is not doing testing through their college, through the university. We are, and we do have the contact tracing process, and we are using extreme mitigation efforts in that regard to ensure that it doesn't spread on our campus. One more thing I had to say. I would also like to point out the recent sick out event that happened. There were 500 people that signed that across both University of Iowa and Iowa State University. That is 500 people out of 60,000. I would like you to take that number into account when you're voting tonight. I yield.
President Fritz has yielded Senator Mass's time.
Back on Senator Mass's time.
No, President Fritz said she yielded, so that speaking privilege is done.
Understood. Thank you.
Senator Young.
Thank you, President Fritz, for the clarification. I'm only speaking on behalf of the student athletes that I have experience with, so I appreciate you clarifying that point for me. And to further address the point that was made earlier, personally, I do not support all online classes. As I've expressed before, I am a vet student and I rely completely on my in-person, hands-on labs. So that is not my personal belief. I just believe that we need to be taking steps as a community of students to support the community of Ames to make sure that they are healthy while we all try to remain healthy on campus as well and taking steps to do so. And as it reads currently, I think that this resolution definitely supports that. And so that is why I will be voting yes, and I am going to encourage all of my other senators to do so as well. I yield.
Senator Springer.
Yeah, I thought Senator Young was going to end that differently, so I put my placard up. I just wanted to remind senators that after the amendment, this bill is not supporting all online classes. We are specifying that all classes that do not have to be in person. So like I said before, I think this is a really good compromise. I think we're respecting those majors and those classes that have to have an in-person component, like a student in open forum said about like sewing classes and things. Like you just can't do that online. I think we're paying respect to that. We're acknowledging that, but we're also noting that most classes do not have a necessary in-person component for the majority of the class. I know a lot of engineering classes do have labs, but I have a lot of engineering friends, and the rest of the class has gone online, and then they go into lab in person. So I think that this is a really good compromise, and I think that senators should keep that in mind when voting. I'm going to be voting yes. I would encourage you to vote the same. I yield.
I guess I would like to state that we have changed the resolved clauses substantially throughout the day, and maybe after the resolved clauses amendments are done, the preamble of whereas clauses could be reviewed to ensure that it lines up with the intent of the bill. Acting Vice Speaker Advait.
Right, I was just going to bring up the whereas clauses. And number two, thank you for voting down the amendment. It's something I was personally against, but as Senator Zastro noted, it's something that was brought up a lot in committee, and I figured I just wanted to give the body a chance to consider that. Moving on, I think right now the bill is at a pretty good compromise, as Senator Springer said. There's really passionate voices on both sides of the table right now, and I think as student government, it's our responsibility to accurately represent the student body. And right now, I understand it's really mixed. As things stand, I think this is a bill that's palatable to both sides. I do understand where both sides are coming from, and it's really impossible for us to pick one over the other, is what I think. This is something we did consider in SI committee too, and we tried to be as logical and attempting to make this represent the true state of campus as we saw it, and as I think we've seen at Open Forum today. We've removed the most controversial clauses. This isn't the bill that originally came to us, and I think with the removal of first the Greek housing section and then the moving everyone out of Ames section, and now we're not even asking the university to move all classes online. We're just asking them to assess the situation. I think no matter what side of the debate you're on, asking the university to assess what's going on is always the right thing to do. So as it stands right now, I see nothing wrong with the bill. I encourage all of you to please vote yes. I yield.
Senator Stenzel.
Just to address the whereas clauses, I move to amend the bill. Oh, there's way more than I thought there was. Cancel my amendment. Where do we want to go from here? That's an open question. I yield.
Senator Simonson.
I move to amend the bill by striking everywhere as clause except for the first two.
There's been a motion to strike all but the first two whereas clauses of the preamble. Is there a second? There's a second. Is there any objection to consideration of the amendment? Seeing none, we'll move on to debate of the amendment with Senator Simonson.
I think that the first two whereases are pretty general and easy to agree with, and the rest of them get into specifics. Some of them are dated, and some of them don't make any sense with our new resolves. I yield.
Senator Zastro.
Would it be in order for me to request a 5-minute recess?
You could move to recess for 5 minutes.
I'll make that motion.
There's been a motion to recess for 5 minutes. There's been a second. Is there any objection?
Objection?
There's been an objection. We'll now move into a vote on whether to recess for 5 minutes. So please raise your placards up for yes, you would like to vote, or like to go into recess. And up for no. And up for abstentions. Then with a vote of 24 to 5, we are recessed for 5 minutes. We will reconvene at 8:20. Senator Zastro, the floor is yours. We are on Senator Simonson's amendment.
Oh, what is my mic on?
Yes.
Bender told me it was on. Senator Bender, I was confused about that. Now I understand that comment. I would like to make a secondary amendment. Before I do that, I like this amendment. I think it's a good idea to remove the whereas clauses that are dated or that no longer apply. There are two that I think we should keep, and so I'll do them in two separate secondary amendments. So as it stands right now, without any of them being stricken, I would like to amend the primary amendment so that the fifth whereas clause stays in the bill.
There has been a motion to amend the amendment to save the fifth whereas clause from being struck. There's been a second. Is there any objection to consideration of the amendment? And seeing none, Senator Zastro, the floor is yours.
So this amendment, this whereas clause just describes why it's difficult in specifically a university atmosphere. I think it does talk, I think it kind of provides a reason why we're sending this to the people we're sending it to in the resolve clauses. Is there any other, I don't see any other comments on this. I'll call the question on the secondary amendment.
There's been a call to question on the secondary amendment and a second. Is there any objection to voting now on the secondary amendment? And seeing none, we will move into a vote. You need to say object. There's been an objection.
I'll withdraw my call to question.
Okay, so the question has been
Senator
withdrawn.
Zastro.
You do not have the floor yet. Do you yield your time?
Senator Advait, Acting Vice Speaker Advait, what's your question?
Yeah, would you take it as a friendly to take the "and" out of there too?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, sweet.
Call the question.
Second.
Okay, so there's been a call to question and a second. Is there any objection to voting now? Then seeing no objection, we will move into a placard vote on the secondary amendment. There's been a call for unanimous consent. Is there any objection to approving the amendment to the amendment by unanimous consent? Seeing none, the secondary amendment has been added to the primary amendment. We are back on the primary amendment. Senator Zastro.
Okay, and then the other one that I would like to save is the very next whereas clause from that one. And if you could save it just through the word city. So it would read, whereas the university administration alone has the power to significantly reduce contact between individuals in the city.
There's been a motion to add that back in. There's been a second. Is there any objection to consideration of the amendment? Then seeing none, we will move into debate on the secondary amendment. Senator Zastro.
I'll yield.
There's been a call to question, a second, and an objection. Do you withdraw your call to question? Or who did? Sorry. You withdraw. Okay. Senator Hovey.
Yeah, I just want to say we're all doing a really good job compromising. I'm really pleased with all of the amendments being made. I do, however, have a concern that this bill is just being amended too much. I wonder if making a new bill would be more beneficial. I guess that's just a statement. I don't really have anything else.
Acting Vice Speaker Advait.
I was just going to ask Senator Zastro if they would take adding "and be it therefore" to the end as a friendly. Sweet.
Upheld.
I yield.
Senator Pfeiffer.
I think this is probably one of the last amendments we'll have to make, so we obviously have changed the bill a lot, but I don't think we should scrap it in favor of waiting 2 weeks to write a very similar bill. I think almost all of us probably agree a lot with this one, so I don't see why we'd want to wait and rewrite it. I yield my time.
Rinchi.
Yeah, I want to echo that. While I think that we have changed the wording of the bill a lot, the intention of the bill has always been what we can do right now at this time to help make things better for our students. I think that we've all really contributed to that. And I think in that essence, it stayed the same while we may have changed a lot of the words.
Senator Zastro. Senator Weathers.
Sorry to derail the momentum on that conversation that you just had going. I'd like to make a secondary amendment to keep the second from last whereas clause as well.
Unfortunately, you may not add a tertiary amendment, so we only go up to 2 amendments at a time.
Okay. Would that have to be a separate amendment then?
Right. So after the vote on this bill, then you could make another amendment, or on this amendment. Sorry.
All right. Sure. I yield.
Call the question on the secondary amendment.
There's been a call to question. A second. Is there any objection to voting on the secondary amendment? Then seeing none, we will go on a placard vote. There's been a call for unanimous consent. Is there any objection to approving the secondary amendment by unanimous consent? All right. Then seeing none, the secondary amendment has been added to the primary amendment. Senator Zastro. Senator Weathers.
I so move to remove the second to last to keep the second to where, excuse me, goodness. To keep the second to last whereas clause.
That is that the one that starts the non-educational costs?
Correct.
Okay. So there's been a motion to keep the second to last, to amend the amendment to keep the second to last whereas clause. And I heard a second. Is there any objection to consideration of this amendment? Then we will move into consideration of it. Senator Weathers.
Yeah, I don't see any language in here that's particularly objectionable, so I think we should keep it in. I think it gives good rationale for the resolved clauses that follow. I yield.
Rinchi.
Call the question.
There's been a call to question, and there's been a second. Is there any objection to voting now on the secondary amendment? Then seeing none, we will move into a placard vote. Call for unanimous consent. Is there any objection to approving the secondary amendment by unanimous consent? And seeing none, that whereas clause has been taken out of the primary amendment as well. We are back to the primary amendment with Senator Weathers. Senator Zastro.
Would Senator Simonson take it as a friendly to change the last whereas clause to say, be it therefore enacted, and the what will be the second to last whereas clause say and instead of and be it therefore? So just switching those.
Yes.
All right.
All right. I'll hold that as a friendly amendment.
All right. Acting Vice Speaker Advait, you got that? Great. All right. I yield.
Acting Vice Speaker Advait. There's been a call to question on the primary amendment, our 10th amendment of this bill so far. If there's been a second, is there any objection? Okay, we will now vote, a placard vote, call for unanimous consent. Is there any objection to considering this amendment by unanimous consent? Then seeing none, the amendment has been adopted. Senator Simonson. There's been a call to question on the bill. There's been a second. Is there any objection to voting on the bill now? Once there's no objection to a voting period, you will get a closing statement. Correct. There's been an objection. Do you withdraw your call to question?
I withdraw.
All right. Senator Anderson.
Something that stands out to me is that we changed basically the entire bill while we kept the intent, but we didn't change the title of the bill. I feel like changing the title of the bill for our constituents will show that we didn't vote on the original bill, if that makes sense. And also I feel like it says to prevent a COVID-19 outbreak. I feel like a COVID-19 outbreak already happened, and this is the response to keep students safe within the COVID-19 outbreak, if that makes sense. I yield.
Senator Lona.
Well, I appreciate the amendment addressing student housing fees. I think you should all think about students that are living off campus and that have signed year leases because they knew that they had the choice of having in-person classes. I hate to be a sticker, but yeah, finances is really important to me, as I knew, like, since tuition isn't reduced. I just think about all the students that have a lease contract, and if
that are out of state, and if this resolution is passed and they don't have in-person classes, then they're going to be stuck in a temporary housing situation where they're taking all their classes online and they can't break their contract, they can't go home. So I think about all those students as well, and I think you all should too when voting.
Acting Speaker Gonzalez.
Could I get the name of the senator who just spoke before Lona?
Anderson.
Anderson. Yes, I agree with Senator Anderson's sentiment of changing the title so that our constituents will not be confused as to what the intent of this bill is. So I move to amend the title to say support of Iowa State action to reduce COVID-19 cases on campus.
Been a motion to change the title of the bill. Is there a second? Second. There was a second. Is there any objection to consideration of the amendment? Seeing none, we'll move into consideration of the amendment with Acting Speaker Gonzalez.
If you have a better way to word it, go ahead and say that. But I would agree with Senator Anderson that I feel like we already hit that outbreak. Hope to God it doesn't keep going up. But yeah, I'll yield.
Pfeiffer.
Can I propose a friendly to change the wording to support of Iowa State action to mitigate the COVID-19 outbreak on campus?
Do you take that as a friendly?
Yes, I do.
Okay, I'll uphold it. Call to question on the change to the title. Second. There's a second. Is there any objection? All right, so we will now go into a placard vote. You see any objection? All right, then Amendment 11 passes. So the title has been changed. We are now back to the bill as a whole with Acting Speaker Gonzalez.
Seeing no other placards up, I'm going to call the question to the bill as a whole.
There's been a call to question. There's been a second. Is there any objection to voting now? Okay, then I am going to go into a roll call vote on the bill. This requires a majority of present senators to pass, which currently would stand at 15. Oh yeah, my bad. Sorry, Senator Zastro. New rules.
You're all good. All right. I think we've had a lot of really good discussion. I think we've made some necessary amendments, and I really hope that we're in a place where we can all agree on this. I understand that there are going to be people who vote no. I would just like to talk a couple more things. So President Fritz brought up the sick out. I personally didn't sign that. I didn't see that until after the fact. As far as I know, that started as a University of Iowa thing, so I don't think that you can say that that's representative of the desire of constituents whatsoever. Senator Lona, you referred to the fact that students have already signed a lease. I'm somebody who's already signed a lease who might possibly live at home if all my classes went online. I hate to say it, I think it's just a sunk cost at this point. I'm really concerned about the health of students, and I think that needs to come before whether or not a previous choice was justified in the end. I certainly understand where you're coming from. I think I disagree on that point. President Fritz also said, theoretically, there are plans in place for students who go in quarantine. I've been on the other side of those plans, and they are theoretical. I'll say that much. In the 20 days that I was in quarantine, I'm somebody who's never had any real difficulty with my mental health. And for the almost 3 weeks where I could only see Dawson for about 10 days, and then when I couldn't see anybody for another 10, I struggled to keep up with my classwork. I struggled to keep myself in a schedule. And by continuing to risk even a mild risk of having students being exposed to this, where they would have to go into that quarantine, I don't think that we should treat that lightly whatsoever, because even if they don't get sick, that's still something that's really difficult to get through. Regarding people who came to speak during open forum, just from a statistical perspective, I think that there's probably some level of non-response bias. If you think classes should be going online, you're probably less likely to come to a place where people are gathered to speak. Just keep that in mind. I'm not a stats major, but I think that's worth considering. To talk a little bit more about my personal experience with COVID, I never tested positive, but I had already been in quarantine for 10 days when I started experiencing symptoms, so what else could it have been? My roommate, who I was doing the dishes of and stuff like that, had it, so pretty sure I had it. I had a fever that almost got to 103. I was absolutely miserable for probably 6 days. I had trouble standing for more than 30 seconds at one point. This is the most sick I've ever been. I think that it was hard for me to put it in perspective beforehand. And I'm somebody who's young, who's healthy, and not all the members of Iowa State are like that, and not all the members of the Ames community are like that. So I really just can't emphasize enough how important it is to stay out of quarantine and to stay healthy. One last point, President Fritz, are you aware of whether or not Iowa State athletes get tested regardless of whether or not they're showing symptoms?
I am not sure on that point, but I could find that out and get back to you.
Okay, well, this is the Senator Senzel. Do you have knowledge of that?
This is anecdotal, but I do work with 2 Iowa State athletes, and they both have regular testing. Again, it's anecdotal. I don't know. You have to ask Jamie Pollard.
Yeah. That's something that I assumed. If we're operating on anecdotal evidence, probably don't consider that too heavily. But if we do have some reason to believe that they're being tested when they're non-symptomatic, that would be a reason that their positivity rate is much lower. One other thing that I thought of that doesn't matter all too much, but as the weather changes and it gets colder, it'll be less viable to be outside. Iowa State right now, I think, relies a little bit on outside seating, outside of parks, outside of the hub, and I don't know how viable that'll be as we get further into the spring semester. Yeah, that's all I have. Thank you all for a really great discussion, for a really great debate, for changing this bill. I hope you all vote yes. I know not all of you will, and that's okay. But thank you all for really considering your constituents, their health, their safety, their wellness. And I think even if this bill ends up failing, I think that we did a good job with discussion tonight.
Thank you, Senator Zastro, and thank you for calling me on the point of order. Now move into a roll call vote. As this will require 15 votes to pass. If I read your name, vote yes, no, abstentions, or if you're not sure yet, move me down. Senator Adegarla. Edvate. Yes. Anderson. Bender. Yes. Brown. Emery. Fahim. Green. Goff. Hanyang. Hayes. Hovey. Klaptotowskis. Oh, sorry, not on the roll. Lau. Lewis. Lona.
No.
Ludwig. Yes. Mass. No. Pfeiffer. Yes. Rinchie. Yes.
Yes.
Simano.
Yes.
Schulte. Simonson.
Yes.
Springer. Stenzel. Weathers. Young. Zastro. Zavoski. Oh, sorry. Gonzalez.
Yes.
Did I miss anyone else? With a vote of 20 to 8 to 1, the bill passes. We will- And apologies on the slow roll call. When it's on the first one of the page, I have to line up with the other one, and it gets hard. So we'll now move on to 2020-2-038SG, seating at-large members to the Sustainability Committee. And I have that with Acting Speaker Gonzalez.
Awesome. Okay, so I accidentally sent it to you guys ahead of time in your emails, but the at-larges for this committee did not feel comfortable coming to this meeting today. So if you check in your emails, you'll see a PDF with their statements. Please review that. I think out of respect for all of our time, just because this meeting is running late, I will not go ahead and read those. If you have any red flags, see anything of concern, please say something. But other than that, I will yield.
Okay, we're now on to general discussion of the bill. It's been a call to question and a second. Is there any objection? All right, then seeing no objection, we will move into a vote, a placard vote. There's been called for unanimous consent. Is there any objection to approving the members to Sustainability Committee by unanimous consent? Seeing none, the members have been approved. We will now move on to 2020-2-043SG, seeing at-large members to the Diversity and Inclusion Committee.
Motion to remove Senators Stenzel and Mass from the roll.
There's been a motion to remove Senators Stenzel and Mass from the roll. Is there any objection? And seeing no objection, the two senators have been removed. And we'll go to the Diversity and Inclusion Bill with Senator Gonzalez.
Yes. So will the at-larges please come to the podium, stand 6 feet apart, please, and then go ahead and give your statements. And I believe Eliana will be speaking on behalf of one of the at-larges. Oh, just kidding. Wrong one. But the other ones can go ahead and give their statements. And then remember to exit this way. Thank you.
Hello, my name is David Pena Medina. I'm a freshman majoring in actuarial science. And I believe that Iowa State lacks in support and representation of undocumented immigrants in their orientation and school visits. And so I founded a group in high school that was meant to remedy that exact same issue, but within my high school. I created a safe space where the undocumented immigrants in my high school were able to talk about their issues and just feel comfortable knowing that they were not alone and that they were able to connect with students that were dealing with the exact same issue. And I think that Iowa State can do a better job of representing that undocumented immigrants have succeeded at this institution before and that they will continue doing so. And yeah, I think that's it.
We'll just do a little rotation and let everybody introduce themselves. Thank you.
My name is Carmen Reza Solorio. I'm a freshman here, double majoring in construction and environmental engineering. It was the summer of my senior year, or junior going into senior year, and I had the chance to participate in National Hispanic Institute, the Lorenzo de Zavala legislative session, particularly. And from that experience, I got to see different perspectives in terms of culture, because people were from all over the nation. And taking that experience, I came back to my high school and created a club that allowed Hispanic students to reach out for those resources that the school provided, in particular undocumented students, because most of them did not have the courage to speak up. I myself am an undocumented student, and as part of this committee, I want students to have the comfort to reach out to those resources here on campus. Thank you.
Hi everyone, my name is Aliana Booman. I'm a junior in pre-law studies, so a criminal justice major and a sociology minor. One of the things that I would like to bring to the Diversity and Inclusion Committee would be a program with the Writing and Media Center to help students of color, first-generation students, students who come from a poorer background, to help them build their resumes and internships. I come from a small town where there are not many students of color, but I know those students of color and students of color around me do not necessarily have the tools and the knowledge to reach out to other people, to find those internships, to find those opportunities. And many of us are afraid. Many of us don't know who to ask, or we don't want to look like fools. We don't want to seem like we are unintelligent. So I think that a really good thing for us to do would be to provide this program and to provide the support for students. So even if they don't necessarily feel like reaching out, it is an option for everyone so they can excel as well as everybody else.
Hi everyone, my name is Ramat Adesukomi, and I'm a grad student in electrical engineering. I'm joining this committee because as an undergrad, I've experienced a lot of being underrepresented, and coming to Iowa State, I happened to be one of the very few black students in my department. So now I'm joining this group just to promote, talk about this stuff, promote the weaknesses and strengths and opportunities that Iowa State can provide for underrepresented students like me. Thank you.
My name is Kit Claiborne. I'm a freshman double majoring in animal ecology and biology. And in my high school, I was part of multiple organizations and clubs that strive for diversity and inclusion, and I saw how those committees flourished compared to other ones that were just, that didn't focus on that. And coming from a mostly white town, obviously I am white, but a lot of my friends are minorities, and I want everyone, especially on this campus, to have the same opportunities that I, as a white male, can. Thank you.
Hi everyone, I'm Lauren. I'm the Director of Diversity and Inclusion. There are 3 at-large members that weren't able to make it tonight, so I'm going to read their statements on their behalf. The first one is Marlene Hernandez. Hello everyone, my name is Marlene Hernandez. I'm a sophomore in management and marketing and would like you all to know how much I appreciate the opportunity to be considered as part of this committee. It would mean so much to me to be part of this committee because I feel passionate when it comes to helping others feel welcome, safe, and included on campus. I would like to help every student feel like they're a part of the ISU community and, most importantly, feel respected and valued. I am a committed, responsible, creative, and honest person, and I assure you that I will give my best in every event, initiative, and project in order to make it an unforgettably successful experience. Thank you all. Sorry, I'm getting out of breath. Thank you all for listening to my words, and I hope everyone has a good night. Stay safe. The next one is Dewani Kapoor. Dewani is a graduate student majoring in information systems. I graduated from the University of Northern Iowa, and this is my first semester here at ISU. I was very involved on campus and was part of various organizations. As an international student, having a diverse and inclusive environment on campus has always been one of my passions. In the past, I have served as the chair of the Campus Activities Board at UNI and was also a part of the UNI's alumni chapter called Connecting Alumni to Students and International Student Promoters. My role as a leader and a member had always been to keep everyone's interest in mind and make the student body feel more welcome to every event that I had organized. I am a team player and would love to organize more events and campaigns that support diversity and inclusivity on campus. I believe we already have a diverse culture on campus, but as a committee member in the student government, it will give me a bigger chance to promote diversity and inclusivity to the campus community. And then the last one we have is Natalie Rivera. I am Natalie Rivera. I am a junior majoring in psychology with 2 minors in criminal justice and U.S. Latina studies. I'm currently the diversity officer for Psych Club, where I focus on diversity and inclusion within the psychology department. I was also a BOLD peer mentor for the BOLD learning community. BOLD focuses on creating a positive space for incoming multicultural students within LAS. It would be a pleasure to be a part of the Diversity and Inclusion Committee because it is a passion of mine to create an atmosphere revolving around respect, support, and peace. It is crucial to allow everyone to have a voice as well as to be heard. I am committed to creating initiatives that will positively impact the campus climate. To work towards creating an inclusive space, I thought it would be impactful to integrate a diversity officer position within most of the clubs and organizations at ISU. I believe this will give students another resource. All in all, it would spread the word about the importance of diversity and inclusion at ISU. And that's everyone.
Thank you. Time has expired on the opening statement, so we'll move into general debate. It's been a call to question. Is there a second? There's been a second. Is there any objection to voting now? And I realized I forgot to do it last time. If you ever catch me forgetting to do things, just yell point of order, and I'll correct myself. But closing statement with Acting Speaker Gonzalez.
None.
Okay. No closing statement, so we will move into a placard vote. So call for unanimous consent. Is there any objection to approving the at-larges by unanimous consent? Then seeing none, the at-larges have been confirmed to the committee. Yeah. Move on to 2020-2-046SG, seating at-large members to the Public Relations Committee with Acting Speaker Gonzalez.
Yes, will you guys come up to the podium? Please stand 6 feet apart for social distancing, physical distancing, and then give similar statements as previous.
Hello, my name is Carolyn Hoffensberger, pronouns she, her. I am a sophomore, double majoring in advertising and psychology, and being a part of the PR committee will allow me to strengthen my advertising skills, learn more about student government, and also help other committees that need help with promoting their events and projects to the Iowa State community. Thank you.
Okay, hi everyone, I'm Taylor Smansky. I'm a junior and I'm studying advertising and apparel merchandise design and I'm minoring in data science. I'm really excited to be on the PR committee because I want to get more experience with graphics and creating like more digital content, videography, stuff like that. I'm really passionate about promoting the Consent is Bay and the like Get Yourself Tested STD promotions that student government helps bring awareness to on campus, and yeah, thank you.
Hi everyone, my name is Jaylene Rivas. I wanted to join, I'm a senior in PR with a minor in event management, and I wanted to join this committee just to promote voting and voter registration to minorities around campus, just because I know that sometimes we don't focus on that so much. And I think that's really important, and especially in Iowa. So yeah, that's pretty much it. Thank you.
Hello all, my name is Eliana Crabb. I am the Director of Outreach, and I'm reading a statement from Cody Nepper-Burris. Cody Nepper-Burris is a sophomore in journalism and political science. She is joining the PR committee to further her campus involvement and further the connections between the student body and student government. Thank you.
Speaker Gonzalez.
Yield.
It's been a call to question. Is there a second? Is there a second? Is there any objection to voting now? Okay, so we will, Speaker Gonzalez.
To vote.
Is that, okay. We will go into a placard vote. Call for unanimous consent. Is there any objection to confirming the at-larges by unanimous consent? All right, then seeing none, the at-larges have been confirmed to Public Relations Committee. We'll now move on to 2020-2-047SG, seating at-large members to Finance Committee. with Acting Speaker Gonzalez.
I will yield my time to Finance Director Class.
Yeah, so while the other two are walking up to the podium, I have my own mic, so I'm not going to walk up there. Sorry, privileges. I'm going to speak for the other two that were here but had to leave due to being busy, and we took a little bit of time. So Jacob Fryer, he said, "Hi, my name is Jacob Fryer, and I'm a junior studying finance and political science. I joined student government as I wanted to help serve the student body and apply my experiences of processing line items and budgeting expenses. I would like to help maintain balanced accounts and help clubs and organizations brainstorm creative fundraising actions." And then Sydney, "Hi, my name is Sydney Lockle." I needed to ask her how to pronounce her name before I started to say that. "And I am a junior in finance and statistics. I joined student government as an opportunity to be a voice on behalf of all students that attend ISU. I am hoping to use my knowledge gained from my education at ISU and my professional experience to help make financial decisions related to the opportunities the student body is granted, even in unforeseen times." And then if you two want to go.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Jack Steen. I'm a sophomore studying finance this year. I look forward to representing and serving the student body. My biggest goals during these challenging times are to properly allocate funds to student organizations and to be as fair as possible. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Arman Gupta. Like I mentioned before, I'm a freshman here studying computer science. I have two reasons for joining the Finance Committee. One of them being that I want to hopefully bring my budgeting, my resource allocation, and my leadership experience from running a few businesses on the side to the Finance Committee here on campus. And my second reason is just to build more rapport in the student government, learn a little bit more about how everything works, and hopefully make a few friends on the side to hopefully be sitting in one of the seats in front of me here today in the future. Thank you.
All right. As Acting Speaker Gonzalez yielded the time to Finance Director Class, that is the end of the speaking privilege. So unless Finance Director Class has more to say.
No, they were at the committee yesterday, and they started on a strong note, so vote yes.
I called a question and a second. Is there any objection to voting now? Then seeing no objection, Acting Speaker Gonzalez.
There is no closing statement.
Great. We will now go into a placard vote. Call for unanimous consent. Is there any objection to confirming the nominees by unanimous consent? All right. Then the at-large members have been sat to Finance Committee. We will now move on to 2020-2-044SG, seating senators to the Diversity and Inclusion Committee with Acting Speaker Gonzalez.
Will those senators please come up to the podium? I think you guys got the gist of how it goes. I meant three, all three of you, not all both of you. All three of you, my bad.
Hi everyone, my name is Sanjana. I'm majoring in Management Information Systems. I'm a junior and I'm currently one of the 2 Ivy College of Business senators. I want to be part of the Diversity and Inclusion Committee because I want to give a bigger speaking platform to students of color and provide equal opportunities for them to succeed. Thank you.
Hi, y'all. Lydia Green again. I want to join this committee because I have always had the platform to represent myself, and I, quite frankly, have not had very many challenges that from the campaign last year, speaking to many students of color, hearing about their experiences, creating the platform really kind of puts you more into their experience, and there needs to be more needs to be done. So I would like to use my platform to help out.
Hi, y'all. Once again, my name's Alexis. I use they, them, their pronouns. As I previously mentioned during my nomination, I have a lot of experiences working on diversity and inclusion causes during my time at my alma mater, Cal State Fullerton. So I would like to continue that work. as well as there's one really passion project I have that I really would love to see at Iowa State, which is that Diversity Roundtable series, where every semester we meet with different marginalized communities and discuss topics and issues they're currently facing on campus and making it a recurring event so we can have an ongoing discussion about issues on campus that are affecting marginalized communities.
That all sounds so good. You guys sound so qualified. I'll yield to the floor.
There's been a call to question and a second. Is there any objection to voting now? All right, Acting Speaker Gonzalez.
I yield.
All right, then we will go into a placard vote. It's a call for unanimous consent. Is there any objection to approving the senators to the committee by unanimous consent? Then seeing none, senators have been approved to Diversity and Inclusion Committee. We will now move on to 2020-2-045 SG, seating senators to the Public Relations Committee with Acting Speaker Gonzalez.
Will those senators please approach the podium and speak? Thank you.
Hi, everyone. I'm Emily Hovey, and I want to join the PR committee because I was on it last year, and it's what introduced me into student government. I loved it so much. I loved being able to connect with people and to really come up with like creative ideas to run with. I feel like it's something that student government can't really do sometimes, but PR committee really allows us to do that. So I'm really excited, and I hope to bring some cool projects to campus this year.
Hey everybody, I'm Daniel Hayes, and if I were to be on PR committee again this year, this would be my third year on PR committee. It was how I was introduced to student government. At first I was on outreach, and then last year I was part of the events team with Emily. And so I feel like I have a lot of experience in this area. And I think that it really interests me just because it's always so fun and so creative. And I feel like PR committee is the best way to try to ensure that students know what's going on in student government and actively are involved and care about what's going on in student government and in student life. And so I really just like building the bridge between students who may not know what's going on in this room here today and what's going on in this room here today.
Speaker Gonzalez.
Our well-dressed senators seem qualified, so I'll yield.
Senator Advait.
I was just going to ask if you have any specific goals you want to accomplish over your period on the committee.
Yeah, so in years past, I feel like I would have more specific projects which I'd like to take underhand, but with this year already being like 1/3 of the way through, and Anna Olson, who is our chair, having so much that she already has on the table, I feel like one of the things that is best about this year is just sort of taking like what we have now and really just trying to execute it like as well as possible. But there is still a lot of like freedom that goes with into that, and so I know that Anna was telling me yesterday at our meeting about how she would like me to be part of the more humor based content, and I think that's something which I haven't been able to do before, but I think I'm looking forward to that. And a lot of that is just because a lot of like what student government is known for is very serious, and some of the recommendations that she had gotten were to try to find a way for kids to be entertained as well as informed by student government, and so I think that that's a creative project which I plan to execute well.
Yeah, I would love to be able to plan some type of socially distanced event. Obviously, we have no idea how that's going to go or how the rest of the semester is going to go, but I think a goal of mine would be to just bring some type of normalcy to the student body and offer something fun, something that can take their mind off things and maybe make them feel like they're really a part of campus again. So yeah.
There's immensely qualified people. Yield.
Senator Zastro.
Senator Hayes, you mentioned a possible more humorous approach to online extension. for student government? Would you be open to student government getting a TikTok?
I am totally open to student government getting a TikTok. I personally do not have one, so maybe it would be a little bit of a learning curve, but it does seem like a fun way to get especially younger students involved.
You do not have one yet. I am very interested in seeing what you can produce. Call the question.
It's been a call to question. A second. Any objections? Seeing no objections, Acting Speaker Gonzalez.
I yield.
All right, we will go into a placard vote. Call for unanimous consent. Any objection? They're set. We will now move on to 2020-2-031 SR, endorsing income share agreements. Since both the bill's sponsors are not with us anymore, if Acting Speaker Gonzalez could introduce the bill. Not with us as they're somewhere else, not that they're dead.
Yeah, I can do that. I'm just pulling it up. Yes, endorsing income share agreement. So, remember when Julia Campbell came to, or Director of Affordability Campbell, came to speak with us on her presentation of, oh, yes. Oh my gosh, I didn't even see you there. I'm so sorry. Yes, I will yield to Director of Affordability Campbell.
Good evening, everyone. So again, my name is Julia Campbell, and I had the pleasure of speaking with you all a few weeks ago about income share agreements. And this is something that we are really excited for what the potential could be at Iowa State. So with that being said, this bill proposes that we endorse an income share agreement being developed at Iowa State that would be an aid in the affordability toolbox for students here that fit the program's goals, and it also works well for them. So with that being said, if this is a bill to support income share agreements.
All right, Senator Rinchie.
This looks great because Senator Stenzel is out of the room right now. He sent me a couple amendments he would like to make, and I'm just trying to make sure that I put them in the right spot. Julia, are you familiar with where these should be at? It's talking about adding Associate Vice President for Enrollment and Management.
I believe President Fritz would be aware of the amendments.
President Fritz, would you know a little bit more about these amendments?
Yes, so they're just, the amendments are all adding people, or there's one that removes a person of who it gets sent to. So it's just all at the end of the bill of who the resolution is CC'd to.
Great. Then I would like to go to the final. Is it in order? I got to pull up the bill right now. I'm so sorry. Can you please go to the bottom of the bill? Yes. Can I please add the following names to the ordered clause? It'll be. I'm going to walk over and give you these in a moment, but Associate Vice President for Enrollment Management, Laura Doring, Iowa State Foundation President and CEO, Larissa Holtmeyer-Jones, and Iowa State Foundation Chief Financial and Administrative Officer, Lisa Esslinger, and possibly to remove Jeff Johnson, that it may not be pertinent to have him on there. So I will send those to you, Ed Vate, and I move this motion.
All right, Senator Ed Vate has the amendments reflected on the screen. So there's been a motion. Is there a second? Second. There's been a second. Is there any objection to consideration of the amendment? Call the question. There's been a call to question on the amendment, and there's been a second. Is there any objection to voting now? Then we will have a placard vote, call for unanimous consent. Any objection to approving the amendment by unanimous consent? All right, then seeing none, the amendment has been approved. Senator Rinchie.
Yield. Thank you.
Senator Emery.
Yeah, so I'm going to be voting against this bill. I work in the Office of Student Financial Aid, and I'm also a financial counseling and planning major. My professor and one of my advisors is an accredited financial counselor, and I had a conversation with her about income share agreements, and we both kind of expressed concern that just this is not a great way for students to continue financing their education. Both of our main concerns is that this would be a really, like students would sign off on this and not fully understand the terms. And there are provisions in this that say, like students would be fully, they would be given like a quiz or something, like they'd be fully aware. But just with my experience with talking with other students about personal finances, a lot of people do not know basic personal finance information, and I'm just concerned that they would be signing away just because they see, oh, more money, I could, it's easy, sign, there you go, and then not really know the full impact in like 5 years. So I yield.
Senator or Acting Vice Speaker Advait.
Yeah, real quick. There's really nothing wrong with this for what it's worth. SI committee sent this to Senate favorably. There's nothing compulsory. It's completely voluntary. All it does is, as Director Campbell said, give students an extra tool in the toolbox to help pay for college. I think it's less predatory than high interest loans, and the program's designed in such a way that predatory lenders will be kept out. So I encourage all of you to vote yes.
There's been a call to question. I did not hear a second. All right, it's been withdrawn. Do you yield? Great. Senator Zastro.
I would like to yield my time to Director of Affordability Campbell.
I would like to maybe address Laura's question about this, knowing that this is not an agreement that is suitable for everyone, just as maybe student loans are not a suitable agreement for everyone. So this is something that, going back to a tool in the affordability toolbox, the students that we are proposing through the pilot program would be identified as students who are currently working with the Office of Financial Aid. And Laura, maybe you could provide more insight on that, but students that have exhausted current funding and sources of loans, that are looking for gap funding to help them get through the last 2 semesters of their program currently. And these students who are very far along within their programs of study would be able to help graduate, so they have a high likelihood of graduating and also entering the workforce following graduation. So with that being said, I do think that this is not for everyone, and we want to emphasize that, but this would be full disclosure, and we would work to educate people before working with them to decide if this is the right program for them, and that would be a decision based solely on their own, hopefully with the financial counseling from a variety of parties and a multitude of key stakeholders in their personal lives. This is not a decision that they would be making quickly or a rash decision. So this would be based on support from many individuals, including Iowa State University, to ensure this is a decision that they are making on their own will, and also with full disclosure of the elements of the program.
Great. Do you yield the time, Director Campbell?
I do.
Great. Senator Hovey.
Yeah, I would just like to echo what Ms. Campbell said, and also Acting Vice Speaker Advait. Upon viewing this bill last week at the SI committee meeting, we did not seem to find any concerns or issues with it because it is a voluntary program. Students are not required to participate in this at all. And it also allows for more time to pay back the money in comparison to regular student loans, as well as the success rates seen at other universities who have implemented this program. So like Acting Vice Speaker Advait said, SI moved to send this favorably. I'm going to vote yes, and I encourage you to too. I yield.
Acting Speaker Gonzalez.
So I'm not completely convinced on these yet, so I just have a couple of questions that I think I'm going to direct to President Fritz first. Could you talk a little bit about who you had discussions with, whether it's the financial aid office or I think it's now called the student. It's been renamed in the financial aid office to be like student success and finances. But Anyway, President Fritz, could you talk a little bit about who you spoke with, whether it was during your campaign or during now, about income share agreements and what they would look like at Iowa State and what it would look like for students who participated in this program?
Yeah, so during the campaign, we spoke to Director of Financial Aid, Roberta Johnson. And, she did have questions about it, and her main concern was making sure that students are adequately protected. And so much of what we did in this proposal was make sure that students are getting a good deal and that they're, not being harmed in any way. And so that was our primary focus of this, is making sure that, while keeping college affordable, students are protected throughout this process. We gave our formal presentation to Chief Financial Officer Pam Kane, who is the head of university finances, and she really enjoyed the presentation. From the comments she gave to us, she seemed very optimistic about it, and she said that she would be sharing it with the ISU Foundation herself. We also have a meeting coming up with Roberta Johnson, the person who you talked to prior, on September 25th, just to discuss further implications of this program. So that's who we've talked to at Iowa State about this. Was there a second part to your question, Senator Gonzalez?
No, I appreciate that. So I guess my second question would go to Director of Affordability, Julia Campbell. What have you been in those meetings as well, having those discussions, or what other information have you talked to when speaking with these colleges that have run these programs?
Absolutely. Thanks for your question. I have been, since coming on as the Director of Affordability this year with President Fritz and Vice President Schrader, been involved in those discussions that have taken place about income share agreements. After that, I came into this role. During the summer, I spent quite a bit of time in contact with Purdue University's Chief Information Officer and Vice President of Income Share Agreements. Her and I have probably had about 3 hours consecutively of video chat and conference, along with a multitude of email exchanges. This is something that Purdue is in their 5th year of their program currently, and we are really excited and hopeful towards, we have optimism towards strengthening those relationships with the universities and administrators that work with these programs, in hopes that we can create the most specific program to Iowa State University's goals that allow us to tailor and uniquely create this program that helps address the goals that this program intends to, and then also provide the greatest value safely to students.
Thank you. I really appreciate that extensive answer to who you've been in communication with. I also just want to clarify something. So students who take out a certain percentage, like as a loan with these income share agreements, they will be paying that back as soon as they get a career, correct? So like whatever percentage that is of what they're making for that career is what they'll be paying back. I'll direct that question to Director of Affordability Campbell.
Yes, so this is, it's a contractual agreement where there's a 6-month grace period following graduation, but then once you begin a career that meets the minimum income threshold, you will begin making these payments back based on a predetermined percentage, and also depending on the amount of money that you took out for a contract, the percentage and the number of payments or the time period will be set, and that is based on the major and the expected income following graduation. So if you come out making more than that or less than that, that percentage and that time period does not change. So that would go along. I believe, does that answer your question, or can I expand upon that more for you?
I don't think you can expand because my time is coming up, but I have another question, but I'll ask later. I yield.
Move to add Senator Grant to the roll.
There's been a motion to add Senator Grant to the roll. Is there any objection? Seeing none, the senator has been added. We'll go to Senator Simonson.
As a whole, I'm worried that this this program could easily turn into a way for students who are already very deep in debt to simply sign away more of their future income. But that being said, this is a pilot program, and I understand that it's a pilot program. And my question is, to the Director of Affordability, what sort of metrics will we be looking for at the end of this pilot program to assess whether or not it was successful in helping students and whether or not we adequately protected students? Thank you. I yield the rest of my time to Director of Affordability Campbell.
I appreciate that, and that's a great question. I think that specific measurable metrics are crucial during a pilot program. So this is something that, as we look to build relationships with the key stakeholders, that would be promoting this at Iowa State University and also developing the program. We are looking at we are looking for feedback from not only the students within the program, the investors within the program, but also the faculty at Iowa State University. So this is something, as far as specific metrics, we have not included that in the proposal at this point, but will come for sure through conversations down the road, and I would be happy to keep you all informed on those as we build upon them.
Senator Brown.
Yes, so for my question is, so what if that student or individual isn't able to pay back their loan or able to get a job to pay back their loans?
Would you be able to repeat your question?
So what if that individual isn't able to get that career of their choice? So then how would they able to pay back their student loans, and not the student loan, but the loans that they were given from the I'm sorry, can you bring me back up again later?
Sure.
Thank you.
Senator Rinchie.
Yes, so I kind of want to go back on the question from Senator Emery at the beginning. I feel like this discussion's all been spurred by that. It seems that everyone in the room who's worked with the income sharing agreements has been very sure to make sure that students are informed about the longstanding impacts of this. And it seems that you want to make sure that we are mandating that they are informed. So would it be fit, I'll ask both Senator Emery and Director Campbell, would it be fit for us to add a third ordered clause and say that students will be properly informed clearly of the longstanding impacts that these agreements will have on them, and that they will have been properly, you could say like properly taken through a process of understanding what that'll look like, so that way they don't get blindsided, which seems to be the concern, and it seems to be not your intention. So if that's...
Senator Rinchie, you're not allowed to ask other senators if they hypothetically would support something. So you can make the motion if you would like to make an amendment.
I would like to make an amendment. Can I please... What? Okay. May I please add a second ordered clause that states that students... I'll give you a second.
Are you able to put that up?
You're good.
Okay, so a second ordered clause.
Which states that students are properly and clearly informed of the long-term impacts of these agreements, and that their well-being is considered at the time of them signing. And I'm open to friendlies.
There's been a motion. Is there a second? There's been a second. Any objection to the consideration of the amendment? Then seeing none, we'll go into debate on the amendment with Senator Rinchie.
I will yield my time to see if there's anyone who has any discussion that they'd like to add to this.
Acting Speaker Gonzalez.
Call to question.
It's been a call to question. There's been an objection. I didn't hear a second, so the motion does not carry. Senator Simonson.
Would it be friendly to move this third ordered up to the second and to put and be it further afterwards? at the end of it.
Senator, would you accept that as a friendly? I would find it as such. Great. So move the position of the ordered clause up one and add be it further.
Call the question.
It's been a call to question and a second. Any objections?
Is this on the bill or?
On the amendment?
Okay, sorry.
So this is the vote on the amendment from Senator Rinchie. So we're going to a placard vote. It's been a call for unanimous consent. Is there any objection to approving the amendment by unanimous consent? And seeing none, the amendment has been approved. Senator Rinchie, the floor is back to you.
I yield.
Senator Zastro.
I really like the idea of income share agreements. I think way back, probably it was like last November, we were having conversations with now President Fritz and Vice President Trader about what their platform would be when they ran for president, and they explained this idea to me, and it seemed like it felt like there had to be something wrong with it. And I did some research on my own, and I listened to the research that has been done by them, and it is I think a really great opportunity for students. One area of the bill that I do have a bit of a question over. So in the ordered clause that states that student government supports the creation of an income share agreement program at Iowa State University. At this point, I'm not sure that that's what we're actually proposing. So I'll direct this question towards President Fritz. Do you believe that it would seriously change the effect if we changed it so that it said that student government supports an income share agreement pilot program?
That sounds good to me. That does not change the intent of the bill.
Okay, I would like to make that amendment then to add the word pilot.
And I guess, does that change?
Sorry, President Fritz, you're out of order. There's been a motion on the floor to add the word pilot. Is there a second? There is a second. Is there any objection? All right, then we will go into debate on the bill. Senator Zastro.
Okay.
Or on the amendment, sorry.
President Fritz, you had a comment about that?
And then I guess, does that change the title of the bill? Do we want to put pilot in the title as well?
Oh, sure. It looks like it's the second ordered clause, so that it reads that student government supports the creation of an income share agreement pilot program. Just adding the word pilot in there.
On the resolve clause, asking for the creation, saying student government supports a creation of an income share program, put pilot before program. Great. I believe the floor is open. Or maybe Senator Zastro, I believe it's still your speaking privilege, actually.
Yeah. Do you still have a question about where?
I'm not familiar with the word you used. Could you please go over that again? I'm really sorry.
You're good. So we don't need to delete anything from that line. Just before program, add the word pilot, P-I-L-O-T.
Oh.
Cool. Yeah, I just think that this is a good clarification because we don't know the full implications of an income share agreement program. We can't be totally sure, even though like all the research indicates that this will be successful. I still would prefer that we just have this a pilot program. If there's no other comments, I'll call the question on the amendment.
There's been a call to question. There's a second. Is there any objection? Okay, then we will go into a placard vote on the amendment. It's called for unanimous consent. Is there any objection to approving the amendment by unanimous consent? Seeing none, the amendment has been approved. Senator Zastro, the floor is still yours.
I will. Could we make one other amendment to add Treasurer Joan Piscatello? I'll spell that out to the final ordered clause.
As a point of information, that amendment was included in Senator Rinchie's amendment.
Oh, okay, sorry, I yield.
Yes.
I would
Acting
that motion if it was made.
Sorry, what was that, Senator Zastro?
If I made
Okay. Acting Speaker Gonzalez.
So I'm gonna continue with my questions just because I ran out of time last time. So I'll direct this one to Director of Affordability Campbell. So I just want to understand this right, because I don't feel comfortable saying like student government supports this pilot program if this program is actually bad for the students who participate in it. I'm not saying that that's what it is. I just say that I don't want to vote for it if that's what it is. So I'm just going to ask questions like clarifying so that I can understand this better. So if students sign up for like a certain percentage of this income share agreement, but then let's say they're an engineer and they start out with like a not so great job. You know, it pays like a little bit, and so they're paying that percentage. But then they get a better job, and they start pay like it's still the same percentage. Am I correct in that aspect?
Yes.
Okay. But their salary gets bigger, so that percentage is larger as well. Like, it's like the number of the percentage doesn't get bigger, but the amount of money that they're paying back is bigger. Is that correct or no?
That is correct. And
So if I'm an engineer and I'm making $50,000 and I'm paying 5% of that salary, who's good at math? What's 5% of 50,000? 2,500. Okay, and then let's say I get a better job and I make 100,000, but I'm still paying back 5% of that 100,000. What's that? $5,000. So now I'm paying $5,000. I guess I don't want students to say like, I don't want them to think like, if I get a better job offer with a higher paying salary, although it's a higher paying salary, I'm still going to have to pay back a lot more of a percentage on my salary. Does that make sense? Has that risk been taken into account of, or is there anything that like you could say to that, Director of Affordability?
Absolutely. So thanks for your question.
Mm-hmm.
I will start off by reading, there's a few things that I'll just state that a payment obligation ends for the student who took out this contract whenever the first of any of the three following things occurs, typically in programs that we've seen currently that are implemented across the United States. Number one, the student makes the required number of payments regardless of the original amount of aid. You reach the term end as outlined in your income share agreement contract, or you hit the payment cap of the amount received. So that is one protection. There's a protection set in place that we can outline that there's a cap on percentage or a cap on payment that you can make back to the program. So I think that to go along, that has been a point of discussion into terms of how people's salaries progress over time. There's an algorithm that is set up with some of the third-party management companies that would work with universities to understand and account for some of that fluctuation and salary change as well as inflation over time, and to continue to evolve average starting incomes with the numbers that go into the algorithms they use to produce these percentages and payment periods. So that is something that the people that are experts in this space are working to accommodate. There is that risk that you mentioned for the student that if their salary were to increase, they would be making more payments, but potentially that would be at a time where again, that is part of the risk that would be outlined and clearly defined prior to engaging in this contract for that student. That would be a point of discussion very thoroughly, and to go along with that, that they would perhaps maybe be they could be any of the things, and that might be a personal decision for them based on their understanding of maybe where they're currently at in the program and their payment plan.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate that. And then just another question. So when lenders go into this agreement with us, would they be aware of a cap, like a cap ceiling amount for those like payments that the students would be paying back, or what would that look like? I only have 30 seconds. I'm sorry. Will you answer that, Director of Affordability?
Yes, the investors would be aware of that. They would be.
Okay. I'll yield my time.
As for information for the senators, we have about 10 minutes before we must adjourn this meeting due to the MU closing at 10. In order to give time for everyone to exit the building, we probably should adjourn at 9:45. So there's information for everyone. Acting Vice Speaker Advait.
Sweet. This is actually Speaker Ludwig's speaking privilege. Speaker Ludwig would like to move to amend the bill to make all of the ordered clauses resolved clauses and change the heading at the top to say a resolution.
Speaker Gonzalez, would you take that as a friendly amendment?
Yes, I would.
Great. So then that's a friendly amendment since it doesn't change the intent of the bill.
Or rather, Speaker Ludwig yields.
All right, there's been a call to question and a second. Is there any objection? Then seeing no objection, I will do a placard vote on the resolution. So please raise your placards up for yes, you support the resolution. And up for no. Up for abstentions. And Ludwig. Yes. With a vote of 16 to 9 to 3, the resolution passes. We will now move on to general orders. Within general orders, we have 2020-2-006Y, a persistent sunset clause in Chapter 17, and that is with Acting Vice Speaker Advait.
All right, everybody. So this is the bill I talked about last week. If Google Docs would be so kind as to load up, all it really does is, like I said, when we made the changes to Chapter 17, the language saying the changes expire was in the bill itself, not in the chapter. So any amendments made to Chapter 17 are not expiring at the end of the semester. So what this does is just put a line at the end of the chapter that says this expires at the end of the semester. And if we feel like it, we can pass another bill to sort of re-up Chapter 17 if we still need it for the spring semester. I yield. That's all I have.
Okay, we will go into general discussion on the bill. There's been a call to question. A second, any objection? All right, closing statement, Senator Advait.
None. Please vote yes.
All right, we'll do a roll call vote. Since this is a bylaw bill, please vote yes, no, or abstention. Adagarla. Advait. Yes. Anderson. Bender. Brown. Emery. Fahim. Grant. Green. Goff. Gonzalez. Hanyang. Hayes. Hovey. Lau. Lewis. Lona. Ludwig. Mass. Oh, sorry. Mass has been removed from the roll. Pfeiffer. Rinchi. Simanu. Schulte. Simonson. Springer. Weathers. Young. Zastro. Zavosky. All right. All right. With a vote of 27 to 1 to 0, the bylaw change passes. We will now move on to 2020-2-007Y, establishing a campus affairs committee with Acting Vice Speaker Advait.
All right, so this is, I have a statement from Speaker Ludwig, and I'm going to read it out right now. The bill establishes the committee that I proposed to you at the beginning of this year. The student government has struggled in the past to deal with the sort of issues that this committee is tasked with handling, and this simply creates a structure through which student government can be both more responsive and more proactive. I think we have all seen these shortcomings. The racist events of last year, trademark, and the creation of free speech zones on campus are some of the more recent examples of our failures. And in all of those situations, not only have we failed to do enough, but our students have felt compelled to act and organize themselves as a result of our failures. These independent student actions have had mixed results, and I believe that more could be done if student government was an ally to students and not a bystander. The committee will have a legislative role in the form of resolutions that may be referred to or originate from it, but its primary function will be advocacy for students on campus climate and their rights relating to the university. By tasking members of our government with the job of being on the committee and bringing in students to inform our actions, I think this committee will be able to do the work necessary to help make campus greater. If you have any questions, I'm sure Senator Ludwig, that's the end of Senator Ludwig's statement. If you have any questions, I'm sure he can type up a response fairly quick. And I'm also going to add that I personally, Senator Advait, do agree with everything that Senator Ludwig said, and I would encourage everyone to vote yes. I yield.
Okay, so that is the end of the opening statement. I guess I would personally encourage this bill to be tabled for a week. We have 3 minutes left. If we read the next bills on new business quick, we can make sure that those are considered next week as well.
Move to table this for a week.
There's been a motion to table it for a week. There's been a second. Is there any objection? Okay, then seeing no objection, the bill has been tabled for 1 week. We will now move on to new business, 2020-2-015F, Trend Magazine line item transfer with Senator Bender.
Do you do title and all that stuff? Yes. Oh, cool. Sorry. So they had a carryover request, and so you can see the memo's kind of long, but it's moving the money that they have already have in their account so that they can use it to print their spring issue this fall. It's confusing. If you have questions, please within the next week ask me. It's really simple. They already have the money. We're just letting them use it how they want to, which is what we like to do. I'm done.
Are there any questions of intent? Seeing none, we'll see this bill next week. We'll move on to 2020-2-014F, Funding Crew Club. And that is with Senator Bender.
Title.
Move to consider as read.
Yeah, we'll see it at Finance Committee, so.
Great. Are there any questions of intent for Senator Bender? All right, then seeing none, we'll see this bill next week. We'll move on to closing announcements. Senator Han-Young.
Thing I would just talk about for a second is the use of representative samples in your arguments. That he reached out to his constituents. Oh, maybe it wasn't you. And I've the people who follow you sometimes are very like-minded and won't more accurate. It is speech zone places where you see traffic. Though there isn't any, you're able to. So I'd say.
Just a point of information, there is no longer a free speech zone at Iowa State University. Senator Pfeiffer.
Yes, so I just want to say really quick, I was informed by the president of IRHA that if classes go all online, then the DOR contract cancellation fee is going to drop. She has talked already with Pete Einling about it, who is the vice president of IRHA, or sorry, of residency, I believe. So that is all.
Great. Rinchi.
Yeah, I want to thank Senator Zastro for bringing forward that resolution today. Those are the kinds of questions that we should be asking. I want to thank everyone else in here for the honest, open, and considerate debate that we had over it. And then the information I brought forward today came straight from a constituency council. I got a hold of almost 25% of my college, so I hope that that's representative. Thank you guys very much. Thank you all.
Senator Zastro.
Very briefly, thank you all for a really great discussion. I hope that for new senators, this lays out kind of a picture of what Senate can do, the opportunities that we have to really talk to the administration and have productive debate representing all of our constituents. I yield.
Chief of Staff Rolling.
Hi, all. A couple things. So this is just a reminder. You as a Senate have the ability to do some really great things. When we have large bills coming up, please make sure that you do your research, you look into it, and are informed when you come to the meeting. I know that this particular ISA, the income share agreement bill, we had 3 weeks to wait on. And our Director of Affordability only received one email with several questions from one senator in this room. This was an important bill to look at, so make sure that you do your due diligence. Additionally, the Senate recap, we need a senator for that, so please come see Ellie afterwards, and there will be stickers in the office to hand out. Thank you.
All right. The only thing I have is it kind of defeats the purpose of spreading everyone out if when we recess, everybody clumps up into groups. Acting Vice Speaker Debate.
Right. Just great engagement, everybody. I'm not going to say a lot. I know we're running out of time. Just going to say the Campus Affairs Bill, if any of you have questions, please reach out to Speaker Ludwig or even me before next week. We'll be more than happy to sort things out. That's all I have.
Acting Speaker Gonzalez.
Hi, everyone. Happy week 5. So I just want to echo that we are 1/3 of the way done with Senate. Take that as a yay or as a aw. I'm taking it as an aw.
For the semester.
For the semester, because we still have a 3rd session. So we'll be back. So with that in mind, I still have only received 2 emails from people having their mentor-mentee meetings. So if you are not having those meetings, again, you're required to meet 2 times a month with each of your mentees. If you do not do that, I will come find you. I will give you a nonfeasance, and that's not very fun. And so please, just make time. It's like 10 minutes. It's not hard. And I don't want to give nonfeasances out because I love having all of you here. So you're also supposed to, I suggested that you produce something at the end of, not this session, but just at the end of our term. So you could do it in the 3rd session as well, but just produce something, you could co-write a bill, you could be a sponsor, you could make a committee if you really wanted to, do a public relations thing. But just keep that in mind as we're 1/3 of the way over already. At the end of this meeting, can I see Senator Green, Hanyang, Grant, and Alexis? I'm sorry, I forgot your last name. Samanu, yes. But yes, please come see me after this. Thank you.
Is there a motion to adjourn?
Cyclones.
There's been a motion to adjourn. Is there a second?
Second.
Any objections? Adjourned.